President Garcia Morales, and I call this regular board meeting of August 22nd, 2024 to order. The time is 5:01 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone to silence their electronic devices. We acknowledge the land on which we gather is the territorial homelands, the Nuwu, the Mawapa Band of Paiutes, and the Las Vegas Band of Paiutes. We're going to begin in a moment with the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Zamora? Go ahead. Forgive me. And the presentation of colors will be led by Eldorado High School ROTC, Cadet Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Sofia Santos, Cadet Petty Officer, 2nd Class, Jonathan Vega, Cadet Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Jasmine Gill, Cadet Ensign Kimberly Maka, Operations Specialist, 1st Class, Angela Clone, United States Navy Instructor. Please stand. Thank you, everyone. Please have a seat. Great work. Great work, students. Nice job. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Satori.
Madam President, members of the board, I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda and amended agenda with the following changes. Reference material has been provided for amended item 3.01, superintendent search.
Thank you, Trustee Satori. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you. I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Satori, a second by Trustee Guzman. Please cast your vote. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 5-0. Okay. Before I open the consent agenda, is there anyone who has not had a chance to complete the yellow public speaker card? If not, please do so now. Otherwise, we'll begin with the individuals who signed up in advance. Ms. Beer.
Okay, yep. Hi, Nicole Beer for the record. I come before you today to applaud CCSD on updating schools and adding to the budget for Hancock as deemed necessary by folks much higher on the pay scale than myself. I wanted to take this opportunity to again remind you that Hancock does not have a teacher librarian for their students. In the 23-24 roadmap, SSP roadmap, Hancock was allocated by the district Title I 1003A account an additional $3,373,983.44. Some of that money went to out-of-district travel, training supplies, books, and flexible seating. It must be nice to have such luxuries. I don't have flexible seating in the Martinez Library, and why is that? Because Tim Adams is a good steward of the money that you all give him. Of course, those decisions were made by the former principal, Sarah Payne. One wonders if the poor decisions and lying that have occurred was a continuation of the culture at Hancock, which included lying to district leadership and teacher librarian candidates about the library positions, or is it simply something Ms. Lucero just decided to do after a couple of months on the job? We may never know, but what we know for certain is that more money is being spent on a school with a probationary principal that is clearly not fit to run it. I ask you again for accountability regarding the mess that Ms. Lucero has created at Hancock. Those students deserve a great space to learn in, which this new building will provide. They also deserve a librarian, and even if you don't agree, policy mandates it. Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to Sandra Tumburo. Forgive me, Sandra, for chopping up your name, but please tell us how to say it, followed by Carrie Leonard. Carrie Leonard.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sandra Tomburo. I am addressing Category 2.06 on tonight's agenda, licensed personnel employment. As a matter of general public interest, I want to address the critical labor shortage and MOA 2621 that went into effect on May 21st, 2024, and is retroactive, affecting administrators who were only hired after December of 2023 until present day. It is my understanding that the board members are expected to adopt shared visions and goals for the district, that they create and monitor systems and processes which are in place. The board is also expected to ensure progress and accountability, as well as advocate for the students at CCSD. If that is true, then I would think that as board members, you share the goal which Dr. Brenda Larson-Mitchell, our interim superintendent, has stated is not only the goal of the district, but her personal goal as well, which is to ensure that all vacancies are filled by licensed qualified teachers this year. At this point in time, we as a district continue to have extremely high numbers of vacancies. Several of us teachers now, administrators in the past, have shared that we were hired and promised one salary, and at a much later date informed of a newly adopted MOA which lowered our salaries ranging between $20,000 and $60,000. This pay decrease is due to a change in a pay scale being used to pay only returning administrators, a pay scale that was created almost a decade ago and has not been used or revised for years. This pay scale is extremely different from the pay scale used to pay new teachers, new administrators, or returning teachers. We are only a subgroup to be paid with this antiquated pay scale. I continue to ask why. Yes, we were once administrators for the district, and I might say that all of us represented here tonight quite a good job. We were dedicated, loyal workers, and we worked very hard over the years. We all were teachers as well. Why are we only being labeled as returning administrators now? Why can we not be considered what we were and are, teachers? I myself worked at a charter in the last 2 years in the role as teacher. Why am I not being paid like one now? The decision to stand by this MOA and not ask for a revision, a change, or just an even playing field says to me that the district and the board really does not want to fill these vacancies or keep the ones that are filled. You are discouraging other administrators who may have come back not to apply and making those of us who are here reconsider our worth. We are not asking for anything more than what we are due. I currently feel as though we sit on an island of misfit toys. We are asking for assistance from the administrators union and being told we are no longer active administrators. When we talk to the teachers union, the one who implemented this unfair pay scale, they definitely do not wish to support us. So where do we belong? I implore you, please don't just reply with the response that the MOA is written legally and in appropriate language, so nothing needs to be done. Take a serious look at the problem at hand, monitor the system, and take a stand. If not for us, then for the students of CCSD, and advocate for a change. Support what is right. Thank you for your consideration.
Carrie. After Carrie, we'll have Jennifer Donato.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Leonard, and I want to personally thank those of you who did respond to me in email. I get it. At some point, you were all probably advised to send out the party line and been there before as well, so I understand. But you are all able to form your own opinions that in your heart and following a path of common sense, you know this MOA is reckless and only encourages more vacancies during a critical labor shortage. To begin, NRS 288.153 requires that any new, extended, or modified collective bargaining agreement between a local government employer and an employer organization be approved by the governing body of the local government employer at a public hearing. That's right now. But on June 13th, as required by law, you did do this for an MOA. It was presented to you. Here it is in its entirety. I've just got one page of it. That's all it was. It's got 3 sentences, and it was between the Police Officers Association and CCSD. It came before you for the change to clarify the date that police officers can start using their personal leave. 3 sentences. If I add that to a negotiated agreement, here it is. That's what it looks like. It's 3 sentences that are added to the negotiated agreement. The MOA that has not been brought before you, that apparently is just a mistake and does not consider itself to be a modification or an addition, has the first page, You then go to the second page with 5 items and 5 sub-items, and then there's the third page, the entirely new salary schedule. So I ask you, does this look like a modification and an addition that needs to be read by NRS? Or does this look like it needs to fit that qualification under NRS 288153, that this was a modification, an addition to the contract, which means it needs to come before you? If we're going to do this, we need to do it justly and equally for equal reasons. You can't tell me that bringing this one before you is the same as this one. You need to bring this MOA back before you to vote on it. Tonight, you're going to be voting to approve a legislative draft bill that reads teacher recruitment, retention, and development, right? You're asking for funding for that area, and yet there seems to be a line missing because it seems that we want that unless you're a CCSD administrator coming back to teach in this role, and it's wrong, and you know it's wrong. I ask that you reject the opinion presented to you. You are expected to run the district. You are expected to right the ship when needed, especially if opinions aren't consistent and aren't in the best interest of students and schools. It was clear by your faces at the last meeting that you knew this was wrong and was a horrible decision. I hope you see now this addition and modification to the contract require your approval pursuant to NRS 288.153. I ask that you come and you ask that this to be brought before the board, and I hope that you reject this MOA. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Jennifer Donato Adams present? After Jennifer, we have Dr. Beamel.
Hi, everyone. As a matter of general public interest, I'm going to address the Assembly Bill 2.29, which is 2025's legislative bill draft focusing on teacher recruitment, retention, and development. And this is going to be in regards to critical labor shortage. I spoke to you last time we were here to meet, and we're focusing on MOA 2621. And to be honest, I thought a lot about that, and emotionally, economically, and what's in the best interest of my students. This bill, this MOA, really discourages anyone, not just myself, but anyone that was in an administrative role that learned how to be a teacher, how to be a good administrator, how to be a leader. It discouraged us from returning. And honestly, if we're going to be completely transparent with you, looking at text structures of my students today and cause and effect, I kept thinking to myself, okay, let's look at the cause and the effect of this MOA. The cause, was it vindictive? Was it a misunderstanding? Was it miscommunicated? What was the point of this MOA? Maybe it was just a mistake, a misunderstanding. What was the effect of it? The effect of it is it affected 3 of us, but it's going to affect way more with administrators 12, which are possibly going to be retiring this year, and it affects them coming back to the classroom where we desperately need them. So if your job is to do what's right and what's good for your community, for your children, having a licensed teacher in front of those children are what we need. And if we have a bill out there that discourages that, and that's the opposite of what you are trying to do for our community, then we need to justify that by changing it and making it right. And I'm hoping, really, truly hoping, I don't know anything about law. I don't know anything about contracts. I will be honest, but I do know you have in your heart the right to do what is good for our children. And I'm asking again, please take some consideration, some time out of your day and say, okay, would I put myself out on a limb and bring this back in front of the board and see if there's something we could do? I honestly think that it's what's right to do for CCSD students. It's what's good to do for our community. And if our goal is to make every child in our school district, college and career ready, it's having a licensed teacher in there. And that's what we are. We're just licensed teachers. So please consider revising that MOA. Thank you so much for your time.
Jennifer, could you please state your name, your full name? For the records?
It's Dantuano Adams.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Beamel?
Good evening, Tiffany Beamel for the record. Sorry. I am so excited that we are welcoming so many new teachers to CCSD. After spending a summer of worrying and wondering, I know a lot of people were stressed that we would be short a lot more teachers. As a veteran teacher of 20 years with a sister who is 19 years in and a husband on his 6th year, it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow to see these starting salaries. Someone has got to step in and do better by the veteran teachers of this district. You can blame the union and contracts all you want, but there are ways to make this right. If you wanted to make this right, and you know in your heart of hearts, I'm sure that you can. To show that our dedication, hard work, extra education, long nights, weekends, and sacrifice are not enough to earn equal pay, it's just really tough, as we've seen with the administrators coming back to work. 2.14 is the other one I have on my list. Modernization should actually involve a little more modernizing. I've actually lived through modernizing a 50-year-old school. Cimarron is only 30 years old. The modernization is kind of not. While older schools got technology panels and dimmer lights to help negotiate the new technology in the classrooms, Cimarron got an on-off switch and good old halogen lights. Modernization should be launching the school into the 21st century and preparing the students for the technological landscapes they will see in their career and college readiness and beyond. Modernization should actually mean becoming modern and not just slapping paint on the walls and calling it modern. Again, I've lived through this, so I know the potential, and Cimarron deserves better. I'm actually the class of 1995, so this is my 30th reunion, so I know what Cimarron was when we opened that school. Maybe this is the product of giving the job to the lowest bid, but that's obviously above my veteran pay grade. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have two individuals for Laura and Norm regarding artificial turf. That is, I just want to confirm your item number. What number do you have on the agenda? Okay, at the end? Okay. Very good. I just want to be clear. No. Thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure we don't miss you. Thank you. All right. Okay, colleagues. That concludes public comment. At this time, I'm seeking a motion. Trustee Guzman.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Trustee Zamora?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Zamora to accept the consent agenda. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 5-0. Okay. Thank you, Trustee Guzman, for reading the warrants.
Thank you. The ratified warrants as listed in the bills payable transmittal and board memorandum number 03-24-25 in the total amount of $182,874,137.45.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we're going to move on to item 3.01. That's the trustee and superintendent search business items, trustee and superintendent business items. Item 3.01 is the superintendent search.
Great. Nancy Perez here. Can I go ahead and get started?
Nancy, thank you so much. I'm going to, give me just one moment. I want to clarify an item here. This is an action item, correct, council? Thank you. This is an action item, so I want to provide an opportunity for the public to please submit yellow public speaker cards for this particular item if you have a desire to provide public comments. Otherwise, once we get the presentation started, we will no longer accept public speaker cards. I see Miss Adams. I wanted to say doctor. Can I say doctor? Yeah, all right. Miss Adams is present. I know Miss Perez is on the phone as well. I want to open up this item by sharing that we're here to discuss item 3.01, the superintendent search, and discuss the status of the survey respondent numbers by stakeholder group, an update on the focus groups, and an update regarding the superintendent search timeline, and an overview on the interview protocols workshop materials in preparation for the board work session on September 4th, and possible action on the approval of additional focus group virtual meetings. With us today in person as you've heard, is Miss Adams, and on the phone is Nancy Perez, and I'd like to share with you, I want to start first by clarifying my role in this work, specifically with the firm prior to beginning the presentation this evening. I feel that it's important to clear the air as I have had two members ask me specific questions about my role, and I want to be transparent and provide the clarification for all of you. I work with the firm on the agenda items and meeting planning as my role as the president of the school board. Sean Joseph continues to contact each member about the process, and our board counsel and board liaison are the conduit to Nancy Perez and should be emailed for questions and concerns. Nancy Perez, is our point of contact when it comes to board counsel and board liaison are the members who should be, the individuals who should be contacted if there are any questions about the process, and they should be emailed. They will then work with Ms. Perez. Okay, I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Perez. Thank you, Ms. Perez.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time tonight, trustees. Can we go to the first slide, please? It's actually slide 2 because there is the cover slide. We're in the community engagement phase, and I want to thank the trustees for the questions that have come in through the administration over the past week. A lot of behind-the-scenes work has been happening to prepare for this months-long community engagement phase, and we're just getting started. The community involvement has been extraordinary. Next slide, please. So the process of the search is in phases. There is the engage phase, which we are in right now, the recruitment phase, the selection phase, and the transition phase. In the engagement phase, we are working to get as much information as we can to develop the leadership profile for the Board of Education. The search calendar that the board approved, we are on track and on schedule, with some highlights here being that the focus groups are going through September 20th, that the survey is open and will go through September 3rd, and then that very important document, the leadership profile, with a draft being presented on the 12th, where you'll give input and make recommendations for changes, a final coming to the board on the 26th, and then that application deadline on the 5th, on the September 30th at 5 p.m. And then the phase that we enter into, which would be the select phase, where the board will begin its interviews on the 9th, the 16th, and the 30th. In your packet, you had a complete listing of the calendar under item number 1. And is there any questions at this point about any of the calendar items?
Thank you, Nancy. Colleagues, at this time, if there are, actually, Annette, how did we do this last time?
There's no action here, so I
You're right.
think
You're right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, before we get to, council is reminding me that before we get to action, we're going to listen to public comment and then keep the conversation going. But it seems like this is no action, so this time colleagues will entertain any questions. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, Trustee Cavazos.
President, do you wish to basically keep this, we're just taking each item one at a time? Okay, so I do have a question. I realize that October 9th, 16th, and 30th are still open to possibly changing, which I believe that there had been a general consensus from the board that 9 o'clock in the morning would not be a very inclusive time to have these particular things. So I was wondering, is this something right now that we can address, or are we going to address this later collectively on the entire schedule?
Thank you for that, Trustee Cavazos. There is a couple of things, because that question has been brought to my attention by you. Thank you for that. I can tell you that I've gone back to the item on the 25th when it was approved, and the item on the board with respect to the calendar. The language specifically states that I will work with I will have a chance to review the times as we get closer to, that's not the actual language, that's my interpretation. The language states that I have the flexibility to make changes to the schedule times. One thing that is really important for us to consider is that the first round of interviews, we may have best practice, as we've heard from the board, from our firm, is that we will have anywhere between 3 to 4 candidates to interview. Each will take an hour long, and then we will have some sort of discussion or some sort of discussion that takes place. So this meeting, we should be prepared to have between 5 to 6 hours. 5 to 6 hours. And so moving it to an evening may not be the most realistic thing at this time. And this with the information that I have at this time, which is we don't have any candidates at all right now. But hypothetically, we should be prepared to have a 5 to 8 hour meeting. And unfortunately, until we have that information, the number of candidates, and we know what the schedule looks like, it is premature for us to make that assessment.
Thank you, Madam President. My concern at this time is hearing from the community and, with our superintendent search link, which has been very helpful on our website, is they do want to be a part of this, whether they're here in person or virtually. So do we have any kind of, we're not going to, you say that you are going to work with the firm in your role as far as planning this. So when would the rest of the board be able to find out or to have further discussion so that the community then knows if they want to watch these interviews, if they want to be a part of this, even if they can't be here physically, but virtually? People have lives, we have jobs, and all of us, we know what that's like, obviously, personally. So my concern is if we are going to let them know at the very last minute, they will not be able to view this. And so I just don't see, when we started out with talking about being inclusive and transparent, that we absolutely cannot leave with all the great job that the search firm has done with the survey and all the other components, that a 9 o'clock in the morning meeting for any of these 3 meetings is just not going to fly very well in the interest of inclusivity and transparency. Yeah. So if we could come up with some kind of sometime today, since this is going to be an action item, if we could come up with some kind of timeline where we can figure out to hear all the voices of the entire board to see how we could do this. One of the options brought up by my colleague, Trustee Zamora, which I thought was excellent, was possibly having one weekday meeting combined with a Saturday meeting, and that this would be something that could work and not subject us to a 6 to 8 hour meeting. So I would just hope that we are going to consider some of those options. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to clarify that this is not an action item, that the action was already taken, and there is the schedule is something that will be worked on as we get closer to the event. In terms of ensuring the community is engaged, I hear you, Trustee Cavazos, and I want to just raise up how we've structured these meetings so that there is space and room for feedback in between. So a couple of things to consider. October 9th, that will be the day where we hypothetically have more candidates to interview, okay? The 16th, so we hopefully will have a large pool to interview that day. The 16th, I want to raise up that some members will be attending the Council of Great City Schools. That week is the week of the council, and it is imperative that we're all here in person to attend. And if there is a desire for members to travel that afternoon or evening or even the following day, there's flexibility to do that. Now, the October 30th, that's going to be the final decision point, right? There may be flexibility to make changes and shifts to that meeting to continue to hear from the public. So again, this is not an action item. The board has already provided direction in terms of what they would like, and as we get closer, those decisions will be made clear. And I'm happy to work with you if you have some specific input or even have other ideas to collect feedback once we do have the first round of interviews that will take place on October 9th. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just wanted to put it out there so that it's not something that kind of is forgotten. And I do realize that this is something that we already spoke on and that we voted on. But, you know, again, just speaking for our communities, when they keep saying time open for change, time open for change, you know, their natural question is, when are we going to find that out? So hopefully with the information that you just provided, that we can make sure that all the voices on the board are heard and that we can give our input to you so that, you know, the community does remain included. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Nancy?
Yes, Nancy Perez. So let me just add a little more context. We will be meeting on October the 2nd at 4 p.m. And that would be 1 week before the first interviews. That would be the date for us to really map out, okay, now we know how many of the slated candidates you want to interview. We can map out how long that's going to take, and then we could kind of work on that actual time for October 9th, and that would be a week before. And I think then moving to the 16th, it will be a smaller number than the 9th. And then on the 30th, you'll be making a decision. I think that could absolutely be, it will be a much shorter meeting and can be something that's in the evening, for example. The 9th and the 16th could be very long days depending on the decisions you make on October 2nd. But I think we can really focus on October 2nd as being an action, you know, as some decisions being made relative to those schedules for those dates, because you will make the decisions those days as to how many individuals you're going to interview.
Thank you for that,
Does that
Nancy.
help a little bit?
I see. I'm going to put Trustee Cavazos on the queue. I'm going to turn on your microphone so you can circle back.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Dr. Perez, for clarifying that. I think that that helps a lot. It's not a large window, but I think designating, you know, that we have that October 2nd work session to be able to make this an action item. And I do appreciate you and the rest of the team presenting to us previously that other districts have employed the 1 weekday and the 1 weekend split sessions so that the community could be included. So I thank you very much for the elaboration.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, and that will be a really important date, that October 2nd, to make those decisions. And we're going to need to know, because and we're going to be telling candidates that they're flying in a week later on October 9th.
Great, thank you. Trustee Trustee Esparza again.
So I appreciate, Madam President, you making the comment regarding, because I want it to be known by the public. We want to make sure that this process is transparent. We want to make sure that it holds integrity. We want to make sure that we are very much trying to meet the demands of what the district needs in the future. So I appreciate that you acknowledged that you have been meeting with the search firm, because the trustees were under the understanding that it was going to be the liaisons to be the conduit for us, which was only Joe Caruso and the council, Nicole Malich. So an ask that I have, and I don't know the search firm if this is something, I'm not asking you to violate any public laws or public posting. We received these items today at noon. So as Trustee Cavazos mentioned, you know, it gave me maybe an hour, honestly, between other meetings that happened before and after my day. Is it possible that we can have access to portions of things in advance that maybe are not necessarily privy or needing for the public to be privy to? I know that's a little convoluted, but it really is really difficult to do my role if I'm giving documents with an hour's notice to really deep dive, because I did take the time to do it, and I know other trustees, we all are very busy. So I just want to do a forward ask, because you said, Dr. Perez, we're in the beginning of the process. We want to do our homework. So that's the one question, and then I have a second one about the timeline.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'll leave the first part of your question up to council, but I will tell you this. I will get you materials as quickly as I can. The only reason why we waited till today was so that I could get you as accurate of numbers as possible that have requested, focus groups, virtual meetings, additional information. And so, given that this was an update, I felt that if I could get you the best information possible, and that's why we waited till today. I'll let council answer any questions about getting other drafts of materials. But certainly I will do everything I can to get you materials as quickly as possible. And maybe they have, numbers that maybe aren't as accurate as today. And then maybe I can just give a verbal update of those numbers. I don't see any reason I can't do that.
Council?
The multiple drafts would have to be posted as well as reference material if you guys are seeing some sort of draft. I don't know what that means for staff, but legally, whatever you guys are seeing, then the public needs to see it at the same time. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a simple ask, and I appreciate you, Dr. Perez, saying that. So maybe we don't have the real-time data, but when you come back to us, we get it in real time in a verbal way. I'm fine with the public seeing multiple drafts because then they actually see the transparency of the process. So I want to go to the timeline. Looking at the distance between the final approval of the leadership profile and the deadline of the application, in your experience, that's like 3.5 days window for applicants to really absorb what we are looking and needing for this district. So I'm concerned, is there a disadvantage for applicants that have already possibly potentially applied? What is your experience with that?
Nancy? Did we lose Nancy?
Hello?
There she is. Hi, Nancy.
I'm sorry, something happened. I appreciate that question. It's an excellent question. So the first draft of the leadership profile will be coming in on September the 12th, and that will be posted. Modifications to that will be made based on the direction of the board, and then it will be posted again on the 26th. So there will be a first draft on the 12th. Many of the applicants for this level of a job will be submitting at the very last minute. We are not going to bring you anyone that isn't qualified to do the job. So the question is, who is the best match for the needs of CCSD? They will be in their original interview, and we'll talk about this at the protocols workshop, showing how they are a match to that leadership profile. And so they're going to have a lot of time between really the 12th and the first interview, which is on October the 9th, to be able to demonstrate to you how they are a match to the needs currently of CCSD as communicated by the board, its community, its employees, all wrapped up into that leadership profile document. So it does look very tight, and I appreciate that attention to detail and the question, but really in reality, they're going to have from the 12th to the 9th to really be able to synthesize that information with their own experiences, skills, and attributes.
Thank you for that, Dr. Perez. I really agree with you. Typically, we're going to probably get those applicants near the end, but I want no one to be not given an opportunity or screened out if they've already applied and they don't match the profile. So that's another ask I would like to please be noted with the search firm. And no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Trustee Sparsa-Stroffigan. I'm going to turn
I
it
do
over.
want to just add that anyone on our system can go back into their application at any time until the deadline. And people do make modifications along the way. So I want you to know that even if an application is submitted, they can make modifications to it all the way up until the deadline.
Excellent, thank you. Trustee Barron?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Yeah, in part, actually, I wanted to echo Trustee Cavazos' concerns regarding the special board meetings. One thing that just colloquially that I've talked to with a lot of the North Las Vegas residents is, hey, people do work, but most definitely the idea that we're looking for the person who's going to lead this school district. well into the next decade, and we'll have, quite frankly, a lot of influence, and as such. People want to show up. They want to be part. They want to be able to tune in. And I know I'm a relative newcomer, just a couple weeks here on this, but that timeline with working people in this community just does not work for them. So I really do think that there is time to redress it. There's time to redress those times, and I think to take them into account now. I'm certain that once the community focus groups are conducted, there's going to be issues regarding the entire timeline going forward on this. And it just seems like if you have any time to make clarifications, it would be, it would actually, it would be, I think the wisest time would be to address them at this time. Second, and I'm hoping, and I'm sure we'll have more of a reason. I'd like to probably circle back to this when it comes to is the actual format. I'm sure that will be briefed on it here in a few minutes. So I'll wait for I will reserve those questions until that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members in the queue? Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a really quick follow-up here that I missed, sorry. On the search calendar, on track and on schedule, August 19th to September 20th. I have heard from a couple of entities that some of their original dates were rescheduled, and they are going past the 20th. So I just wanted to kind of confirm that with the search firm, because they want to make, they're looking at this slide saying 20th, but yet they have a date that's after the 20th. And so they want to make sure that their dates are still valid.
Can we hold that till we get to that portion? And because we have every single one listed with every date.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. I think we can keep going, moving forward. Thank you,
Okay,
Nancy.
Great. Thanks. Next slide, item number 2. Just a reminder that Sean has contacted each board member. Please reach out to Dr. Joseph with any additional information that you can think of that you forgot to tell him during your interview. We want to make sure that that is open communication. Next item. Item number 3, the online survey. The survey went live on Monday, August 13th. The newsletters and media began advertising the survey on Tuesday, August 14th. The response rate has been exceptional. Next slide, please. Tonight, I'm giving you a summary of respondents so far. There's going to be even more than this right now, as I pulled this earlier this morning, but we have 12,159 respondents. Over 6,000 parents have taken the survey, almost 3,000 licensed personnel, over 1,000 students, 1,300 support professionals, almost 1,000, 500 administrators, and 265 community members. I also thought it was amazing. I was kind of scratching my head when you guys created a disaggregated group for former district employee. I thought, well, how many could there really be? And I was really kind of amazed that 175 former employees have taken the survey. Next slide is item number 4, which is focus groups. Invitations were sent on August the 16th. So far, as of today, the total number of individuals who have registrants for both in-person and virtual are as follows. There's 155 students, 401 parents, 169 licensed, 37 community, 9 elected officials, 78 support and police, and 49 administrators. As you remember at the last meeting, we agreed that there would be 32 focus groups that were scheduled. If you remember, we had those those 4 different options there in terms of the scheduling of focus groups. Of these, 19 are virtual. And as we're getting the numbers in, we are realizing that some focus groups, there's over 100 people scheduled for one of them. And so we are recommending adding some focus groups for the virtual portion. Next slide, please. The areas that we're recommending adding focus groups are for students, parents, licensed personnel, and support and police. You can see here the number of virtual registrations. This is not total registrations. This is only for virtual. And the number here, I think there's nothing more frustrating than getting onto a virtual focus group, which is proving to be more popular than the in-person, and having so many people on it that you don't really have a chance to have a voice. And so we're thinking that if we can limit those registrations to 35 a section, kind of section them like you do in schools, and even then we'll have hopefully somewhere between 30 and 35 show up, that's a much more doable group that can actually have a conversation, which is the purpose of the focus groups. As you know, the survey is just this blanketed survey that's given out, and the board was presented that first draft on June 22nd. The trustees gave all kinds of recommendations regarding the surveys and customization. We added questions, we added languages, we changed some technical terms, we decided the disaggregated groups. And even although the survey gives opportunity for anyone that's taking it to provide comment, it really is the focus groups that are the more granular information that really make those survey numbers come to life. And I will tell you with the survey, there is already continuity and consensus. I'm really quite surprised that every single disaggregated group, all 7, rated the same 2 items as the most important considerations for the next superintendent of Clark County. And so we are seeing there is consensus among groups, regardless of their lens. And the focus groups really will bring that even more to life. And so this is the one action item for tonight, which is about adding more virtual focus groups per this slide for the 4 groups that are listed here.
Okay, very good. I want to make sure that we take public comment, colleagues, before we dive into discussion. I want to make sure that we take public comment on this item, and we are, believe we have one person who signed up in advance, Kenny Belknap. Are you still present? Kenny, and I believe that is the only public comment that we have on this item. Yeah.
Good evening, Interim Superintendent, School Board of Trustees. For the record, my name is Kenny Belknap. I'm a social studies teacher at Liberty High School, and I serve as the Vice President of the Clark County Education Association. The decision of who our next superintendent will be will determine the future of our district as a whole. And if we don't get this selection right, and we have more of the same, I don't know if we've all considered what that might actually mean for our district. In just the last few years alone, we've seen 2 efforts to break up this school district. One came close, and the other one stalled because of CCA's opposition to it. But we're very concerned that these kinds of efforts will continue to emerge if we don't start showing growth. And it starts now with getting the right leader. Let's be frank, the outcomes that our district has produced over these last few years have not been good enough. We can try to make excuses and explain away how we're making an improvement, but you're just not seeing it. But parents and lawmakers in our state aren't dumb. They've grown tired of us spinning our wheels and being stuck right where we are, and the current problems persisting in CCSD. Some parents have shown their frustration by deciding to go the charter school route, a choice that's more and more popular every year. So many have. CCSD's population is lesser now than it was 10 years ago. And it's not because people are having less kids. People are deciding to leave CCSD because it's not serving them. State lawmakers have done a ton to try to support our work over these last few years. In just the last few years alone, we've seen a commerce tax passed, a mining tax passed, marijuana tax passed, all which go directly to fund education. They gave county governments the ability to increase sales tax to support universal pre-K. And last session, they invested $2.5 billion into public education. They're giving us resources that in the right hands can move the needle. We just need the right person to do it. The state legislator and the governor have shown they won't wait for results any longer. They will pass more legislation, and if we don't get this right, and CCA will be there as well advocating for change. Over the last several years, they've passed several accountability measures to go along with resources. They've passed the reorg bill to give parents more control over the school budget. They've passed the new school funding plan. They've also given 4 appointed trustees to this board to make sure local governments have a say in how our school district is ran. I say all of this because I want to make sure we all know the stakes that we have with this search. We have to make sure we prioritize hiring someone who has shown they can manage a system this large, a budget as large as this one, and they can move the needle. I believe you have the right search firm in HYA to find this candidate, and we encourage you to encourage them to cast a wide net, reach out to as many candidates as possible, and have a high standard for the people that they put in front of you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, I'm going to move on to discussion and action. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. One of the things that I was looking at, and I just need clarification, the last time that you came before us, you gave us certain plans. Is this bumping us up to the next plan?
Good evening, Kawita Adams.
Yeah, great, Kawita. Thank you so much.
No problem. Kawita Adams, President Morales, and also Member Guzman. What we are looking at, it doesn't take you beyond what our recommendation was, but what we're trying to do is show and doing a thorough job with hearing from the community that if we really want to hear from the community and understand what they are saying, that we're going to need a few more sessions. And right now, you can see the numbers of people who have registered in a virtual meeting with 102 people at one time. Everyone will not be able to be heard. And that's just, that's the way it would be because it's too many at one time. However, if we could divide it up, and we looked at the numbers very carefully, between 30, 35, and we may even be able to go squeeze up to 40, the way in which we've organized the sessions, just like the in-person sessions, if we're timing, 2 minutes per person and we're moving through and we have the probes, it worked very nicely in our first focus group. We were able to keep the pace moving. People were able to say what they needed to say. We were even able to double back and people were able to speak more than once. So with that, it doesn't take us beyond the recommendation. It's still like maybe 1 or 2 less. But we do need to recommend that if we want to hear and if people want to feel that the sessions are valuable, and that's the thing, if people don't feel heard, then they're going to discredit the process and they're going to feel that it's not valuable. And with 102 people on one session, you're not going to get to them in that amount of time.
I understand that because I taught and I had 36 kids at one time for an English as a second language class. So I understand what you're saying in getting the focus groups to be smaller. What I'm asking is the expenditure amount. And so the expenditure amount, is it getting us to the next level that you showed us? Because you showed us 3 different levels at the last meeting, and and so I just want to make sure that we're providing the right amount, right? You have a suggested amount here, and maybe I should be asking Joe Caruso. I'm not sure. But if this is the amount, or if we need to add more to it, because you said this is how many have registered. Have registrations closed?
No, registrations have not closed.
Okay.
And so this amount is not,
answer.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, this amount is less than the option that we had recommended. And you're right, because it's going off of actual registrations. But no, the registrations have not closed yet. So, we're thinking though, if we can, section them to 35, even 40, and you all know that sometimes there are individuals that don't actually show up, will be kind of at that sweet spot where there's, more like 30 to 35 in a section. I appreciate what you're saying. There could be more that sign up that, we weren't expecting, but I think this is a good number. That's, where things are trending, and I still think this is a good number.
Okay.
We don't want to add more and create more expense, right? It is less than what we originally proposed. But if something changes, there is another meeting on, the next meeting is on September the 4th.
Yes.
So, we could possibly talk and see if there's any changes at that point.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just needed to ensure because we've been asked about finance before, and then Mr. Caruso has come up and said, I need a range. Is that correct, Mr. Caruso? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll have Mr. Caruso come at the end, if that's okay, at the end of this particular item before we take action. Is that all right? Thank you. Perfect. Dr. Joseph, welcome. Thank you for being here. Yes, thank you. We're in discussion of focus groups in addition. I see some members in the queue, and I'll turn it over to them. Trustee Sparza-Strofigan. Oops, allow me 1 second.
So, first of all, I do want to go back to the process. And one thing I really appreciate is this real-time data really brings my heart so much joy to see the parents really want to have this. And when we say and assume parents are busy, they're working in the community, but yet the virtual option, which we talked about, is very accommodating. So I like the fact that we are providing that and potentially could expand it. Can you explain the process for how people in the community were informed about how to engage? And I do have a follow-up to that.
Great. Yes, thank you so much. So if you remember, we talked about this. Invitations to both the survey and the focus groups were sent simultaneously on Friday, August 16th. All the parents and guardians got it through Parent Link, the students as well. The students also received duplicate invitations because we also distributed to clubs and activities, student body presidents, etc. All employees were sent an email as well. That was to support licensed admin and school police that had both the link to the survey and the link to sign up for focus groups. Any emails that were submitted, we did send the invite to the emails that were submitted. We've also received emails via the form that's on the CCSD website. On the website, on the superintendent page, it says, if you didn't get an invitation, please request one here. And they fill out the form, and then literally the day of, they get an email back to the correct group. So if they say they're a parent, then we give them the parent invitation. We've also had direct requests made directly to Clark County and to HYA. The Clark County ones have come to me via Joe, and the ones that are made to HYA are coming in either through our website and the question one, or directly through the form that we have provided. And so anyone that has requested an invitation has gotten that invitation and an email. In addition, there has only been one focus group to date. So anyone can still request an invitation. And I want to make that really clear tonight by going to the Clark County Superintendent Search website and filling out the form. The reason why we haven't filled out the form is so we know which focus group invitation to give them, because focus groups are better when there is continuity of conversation. And usually individuals that come to a focus group through a certain lens have different things that they want to talk about. And the focus groups, as we talked about, will go through September 20th.
Hello, board members. Please forgive me for the lateness. I would say just one correction. We had two focus groups because there was a focus group that was completed with some special education groups. So I just wanted to clarify for transparency. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Perez. I still have some comments about that. And the reason I asked about the notification is the list that I submitted, I verified with my folks. And I just want to share with you so you can these are the things we get as trustees. And I like to be transparent because it becomes real, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so someone said to me, I got the survey as a parent, but I didn't get anything beyond that. I submitted the individual as a business person, so I did refer them to the website and said, sign up. Someone else said, no, I haven't received nothing yet. When will we get it for scheduling? Nothing yet, but I have heard that others are receiving it. So they were asking me, why is it so inconsistent? So I'm glad to hear the solution is that anyone can still go on the CCSD.net web page to sign to get an invitation. And that still is an option for them to participate. But are we absolutely sure that all of the individuals that we submitted in previously have been notified?
We do have a list of, President Morales, as well as Member Esparza Stoffergen, thank you. We do have a list that we're still trying to generate the emails.
Okay.
And there was a list, because when we received the large list, there were some names where we did not have emails. And so we have been researching that in order to complete that list. And as we get those emails, we are sending that information out.
So I want to just say so that we should do our homework as trustees. I know the list that I submitted had emails. I am happy to, if there's any issues with those individuals that I submitted that are by my name, please contact me. I will make sure that we get that rectified, and I'm sure my colleagues would like to do the same. I know President Garcia Morales, I think your list was a rather bit larger than ours, so I'm not sure, I can't speak for that, because I know it was kind of a CCSD, looked like a family engagement or directory, something that was given.
And what we would say is please, if there is anyone, any concern like that, please just send us the name directly and we'll make sure we directly follow up with them immediately. It's important that people know that we're following up and communicating, and we want to make sure that we address any of those issues as promptly as possible. So just give us that information and we'll follow up. There are, some members have reached out to me on different issues, and we work to resolve them quickly. It's important.
And as an example, for example, the chamber reached out to me and said, we're going to be in DC. There's a big event that day. Could we change our virtual focus group date? We've changed the date. Then I asked them, I said, are you going to give me an email list to send the invitation? No, we would prefer that you send us the link and then we will send it out to our distribution list. So those kind of communications are going on. And so it's a little different sometimes in terms of, different groups and how they're, bringing up more information. But what's really important to us is the registration so that we can properly staff these events so that they're successful.
I think it's also appropriate at this time to address that in that rescheduling, we will have our final leadership profile on the 26th. The dates that are rescheduled may be after the 20th, but they're before the 26th. So we still have enough time to get that last information into that final leadership profile. We will absolutely continue to, aggregate the data and include it when we present it to you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Sparsa-Strophic, and I want to be mindful that there are other members in the queue. May I add you back to the queue, given that you've had just it sounds like you may still have some more questions.
No, I actually have a comment, so
great.
I can
Come
make
on
them
through,
quick.
round it up.
I did attend the first session. It was at the City Hall. I appreciated that there was a process and a protocol. You had over 50 people. And I want to say thank you to listening for 2 whole hours to the community. It just was very enlightful. And I know that some of the other municipalities, mine specifically Henderson, will be reaching out to you as well to potentially do an in-person. So thank you for that.
Yes, and I think we want to say too, our goal is to gather as much information as possible. And as we said last time, we're going to sit and listen to make sure everybody feels like they've been heard. That's really important to us, because when we put together that leadership profile, we want it to reflect what has been heard through a multitude of communities. So we anticipate having over 40 hours of listening in addition to the surveys. I mean, I know some people don't think surveys are as specific as possible, but remember, as we're looking at this qualitative piece, we have the survey and the focus groups, and we bring them both together. So we know focus groups, we know surveys might not give a lot of specificity, but as you can see, the detail that you got from that first group goes way beyond. I mean, we don't tell people you can't say that. Like, we let them share what they feel, whatever they feel, and that will be captured for us. So for those who are apprehensive and think maybe the survey isn't getting enough detail, no, well, that's why there's a survey and a multitude of focus groups, and we'll have hours of listening data to give the specificity to be coupled with that survey to really give a leadership profile we hope that will capture, the essence of what the people of Clark County are interested in. And again, knowing that you'll get it on the 20th as a draft, so you'll have an opportunity to refine it some more by the 26th. So, we're going to work to get it.
We want to get to the essence. So we're there, and grateful to colleagues who've already asked questions. I want to keep going, given that there are more questions from colleagues, and also clarify the process that if there are members, individuals from their list who did not get a chance to have not received invitations, please, as we shared earlier in the presentation, send them to Joe and Nicole, Joel and Council Malich, so that they can help forward things on to the group. Plus, we have the website. Great resource, great tool. We don't want anyone to miss out. Trustee Zamora, you're up in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, team. Thank you to the colleagues asking some questions that I had and covered those spots. I'm going to go down the item 4 slide for page 7. The Google form for folks to sign up to participate in the focus groups, are they being translated as well?
No, the Google Forms for people to sign up that did not get an invitation is not translated.
Is there a way, I know we mentioned it earlier that Spanish is included. The email that I received from the district was in Spanish, and it was interesting for me to open the link, and it was in English. So I'm wondering if that's something we can do a quick translation on.
The survey was available in Spanish. I understand what you're saying. I'm just thinking of the logistics of that, because I don't know which people would get sent a Spanish version, you know what I mean, and which ones would not. And they've all already received the invitation. So the logistics of that, I think, is very cumbersome, because the district would be sending out, well, I guess if we didn't do it to employees, but only to community, but still it would be sending out the same thing again, potentially to, not potentially, to the entire list, because we would have no way of knowing.
Is there a cost to sending it again as a
No,
reminder?
no, I don't mind sending it again, not at all. It would just go to the exact same over 2,000 community emails, if that's the one you're talking about, only community and not the other groups.
Sorry for interrupting.
I don't know if they would be confused, is my question.
Yeah, I received it as a parent, not as a community member. And I'm thinking, this is going to be open up until September. So I think there's still an opportunity to send a reminder, right? And when we send a reminder, if it can be listed as English, here's the link, Spanish, here's the link. Because I think the language of even just signing up for the focus group is really important, so parents understand what they're signing up for and why it's important for them to sign up to participate in a focus group.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. So you're saying to the parent group only?
I would actually ask my colleagues who else they would suggest. Community and parents are the first groups that I think about. Anybody else? I think you're right. Yeah?
I hear some, and, yeah, you're right, on the dais. Forgive me, just because I'm not going through the queue and answering, but I get the sense there's some head shaking from members.
So consensus
Let's,
on.
no, and this is not an action item specifically, this is not something that we're, part of it, but what I hear you saying, trustee Zamora, is that you'd like there to be a consideration, and some members are supportive of there being a consideration of a reminder email to community members and parents to be in both English and Spanish.
Yes.
That comes up before one of the focus groups. Yeah. Nancy?
My other concern here is that the first virtual focus groups for these groups are next week. And if we were to get this, I couldn't get it professionally translated in time to get that out with the focus groups being literally first one starting on Monday. I don't know if you're, comfortable with, a AI generated translation. We don't do that. We don't like to do that. But it would take, more than a day to get that professionally translated.
Yeah, Nancy, I think that there's a general consensus that it exists, that there could be a reminder email. It may be okay if it's after the first session goes out and not, we need to, because it's not just translating, and staff have to work on actually getting it out, which takes it's a heavy, hefty process to email over 40,000 people plus. So, Nancy, do you, or Trustee Zamora, do you have any other thoughts on that particular piece? So I do want to get back to the item, which is adding additional focus groups.
Okay, I do have questions on item 4, which I think is the action
Sure.
item.
Sure.
The other part was, I think this is for the district more than anything, do you know if there was plans on sending text messages out? Usually when there's emails through Infinite Campus, it's followed up by a text message, and I did not receive a text message about either the survey or signing up for focus groups.
I don't believe that was employed. Maybe Joe could answer that question. I was under the impression that you kind of reserve that for really, important things like, school closure or something, like that the newsletter was more the appropriate venue and the email for something like this. I don't believe it went out through text message, but again, that's all going out through your parent link because we're talking like over 300,000 emails.
Yeah, I would like to, this is a little granular in the sense of logistics, and I really want us as a board to stay focused on providing general direction. If the general direction is that there is a reminder and that the best practice is used to communicate with whatever the best practice is, that it includes bilingual content is going to be important. And we stay there and not, at what point are we sending text messages or not, but that information continues to be communicated externally through all of our channels.
I
Is
hear
that
you.
satisfactory, Trustee
I
Zamora?
just wanted to make sure that we're thinking about those gaps, right, moving forward. I'm really excited to see this group of people sign up for the in-person and virtual. Really excited to see how many students and parents. The other part you actually talked about, Dr. Joseph, previous meeting I had asked about the time limits. I'm glad to hear that the last meeting that happened was 2 hours long and you all were patient and were willing to listen to everyone. There's a lot of voices. And this is why I was trying to bring it up last time, because we knew people were going to show up for this. People were going to sign up for this. I never had a doubt that the community was going to try to RSVP. But I had also asked if there was going to be a registration for this, and we were told no. Now they're all registration, correct?
Yes, we did the registrations because we wanted to make sure, in terms of logistics, it would be seamless and we would know. We didn't want 500 people to show up and then we didn't have the capacity and wouldn't be able to hear voices and so forth. So as we thought about it, we thought the registrations would make sure that they're orderly, and we can, once we see the numbers, we know how to deploy staff too. Because if 1,000 people show up, that means we need to have enough people here in terms of capacity to ensure we can execute seamlessly and everybody's voice can be heard.
Okay, and I see that someone mentioned earlier, there's over 100 participants for one Zoom basically a group.
Yes.
Is there a way to be strategic? Because even if we add more focus groups or not, is there a way we can be strategic? For example, I think about legislative session. If there's people in the audience doing the same public comment, there's a question of, hey, if you're in agreement, can you stand up for the Zoom, or probably be, can you raise your hand? And that way it can possibly, everyone is feeling heard, but we're not limiting everyone's voices. I'm thinking that can possibly an idea, or have you done anything like that in the past?
One of the things that we could do, and I apologize, President Morales and Member Zamora, one of the things that we'll do is we will be able to use the chat feature, so we can definitely get feedback through the chat feature. I will say, in facilitating the last in-person meeting that we had, people could hear each other. And so when someone came up and there was someone who had already said that, they were very cognizant of saying, I just want to echo what this person said, but I'm going to add to it. And so those kinds of things we can definitely encourage in person, that if something has been said that you are already agreeing to, take it to the next level. Let's hear beyond that particular point. But still, many times people will have the same idea, but there's something just a little bit different that they want to bring forward, and they will have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all the questions.
Trustee Barron. Trustee Barron.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I have a couple questions. I'm just scanning here the locations for in-person sessions. Now, I've been talking with, of course, people that were submitted by myself and my little education network who advised me as to who put in. And they were kind of confused by how this is going to go. So take me through this a little bit here. As far as I can tell here, so I submitted a number of groups. I submitted, for instance, the Hispanic Student Union, which obviously is a student group. Of course, I had also a few business groups, a couple of my local elected leaders, right? So based upon how you classified them, they were assigned to an in-person session, correct?
They were provided an invitation to any focus groups within that stakeholder group. So maybe for one stakeholder group, there might have been 6 choices. For another stakeholder group, there might have been 4.
And of course, I guess they also were allowed to choose whether they wanted to be in person or, of course, virtual, correct?
That is correct. It was listed at the bottom, and they would fill that out. And then I believe the next step was on the day of, if it's virtual, they would get the link to that meeting.
Great. Again, I know I'm late to the party. I'm one of those fun guys that rises late to the party, and sometimes he even leaves early, right? But I'm not going to leave early today. I noticed that here, for instance, the in-person group here. I'm looking at all these. There's only one in North Las Vegas, and that one is for elected officials. And I don't know how many of them are going to show up, to fill. It says here in the theater, and I don't know if we even have enough elected officials to fill up the theater. I get along with some of them, don't get along with others, but it should be an interesting conversation. But like, for instance, a lot of the parents that are really worried in North Las Vegas, there was just a report that came out earlier, or late last week, that showed that, and I'm very, very happy for the level of attention this board and, of course, leadership has put towards, recruiting. We're down to a mere missing 1,000 teachers, which is way better than last year, missing 1,500 teachers. But, wouldn't you know it, again, schools in North Las Vegas are yet again more likely to not have a fully licensed teacher, and that is a really high item concern for my residents, right? And I know there's a whole bunch of residents who definitely want to be a part of this, but they're not meeting in their neighborhood. And I don't get me wrong, but this is a big item of concern. Mobility is a big issue, right? Hey, I know we're only a minor portion of this, but we're talking about a community with big needs, okay? And right now, I'm So I know that if I asked 100 of my residents, I think they'd be less than, how should I say, satisfied with this process. And I know I can go ahead and ask a lot more people to show up, right? But are these going to be, here's a question in everything I'm saying. Are these going to be the last in-person sessions that are scheduled?
Yes, forgive me, I'm going to jump in thank you, because I want to be clear that the board at the last meeting agreed to the number of in-person and virtual meetings. That's part of the package that we discussed, and based off of the demographic areas and the needs and the availability of space, the firm worked with council and board staff to figure out the Jenga pieces. So any individual who is in our community, there may be only one session, but there are many virtual communities that individuals can participate in, and that would be my highest recommendation for them to participate.
And I would say right away, there are many people in my community who have not crossed the digital divide. It is, sometimes the only access that they have are the one-on-one computers that the children are, and I see people agreeing with me back there, right? The only access that many of my children have is the computer, the one-on-one device that, hallelujah, they're given to them. Sometimes they're sent home with a little hotspot. That's the only Wi-Fi they have available, right? Again, hallelujah, I'm really happy that we're beginning to address this, right? I will state for the record that this is categorically unfair. I'm not blaming you, quite frankly, but I'm saying that this is not what my community asked for. And it doesn't make a difference if I'm late to this, right? I know that there's going to be already questions about this. There's going to be questions, and there are going to be people who are not going to be happy with this one bit. I know because I'm one of them. And where I live, on my own street, I know I have Wi-Fi, and I have the kids, they actually come by, and sometimes they camp out in my front yard, because I let my Wi-Fi have one little thing where I can let it be free. They camp out on my Wi-Fi to do their homework. So again, if we're talking about fairness and access, we have one focus group that's in North Las Vegas, and that's for elected leaders. I think this is categorically unfair, and I'm stating that for the record. And people may not agree with me, but I have a feeling that I'm going to have a lot of people in North Las Vegas who will most certainly agree with me. And again, it's a big hole. We can fix it going forward, right? But I think it has to be done pretty soon.
Thank you, Trustee Barron. I see Trustee Cavazos is in the queue. Go ahead, Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, part of this is already being addressed. Mr. Caruso has been helping me with this, and I believe Dr. Perez too, where there were some I guess, hiccups, some of it my fault, as far as on the elected officials. The number that's given here is 9. I've heard from more than 9 that never received, an elected official invite. So I have directed them to the link, so we're going that route. They weren't real thrilled with that. A couple of them expressed to me that dealing with the legislature, talking with them, listening to them, mending some of the relationships that have not gone too well in the past, that they want to be a part of this. So I will send a further follow-up email with some of the information I've gotten just like right before this meeting to kind of maybe see if we can correct that, because some of them received emails that were on personal emails and they were not sent to their staff or to their elected official email. So that was one comment. The other thing is I want to go ahead and kind of piggyback, but in a different area of town from where Trustee Barron is talking about. Trustee Zamora and I, we basically cover our districts, the east side. Not all of our parents have accessibility to technology. So when we look at the locations here, let's just look as an example, the constituent sent me August 28, 2024, virtually at 6 o'clock, the in-person meetings that they would want to attend, their options, because they don't have accessibility to Wi-Fi, would be Moapa Valley High School Theater, Clark High School Theater, Liberty High School Theater. For our folks, our parents that live on the east side, that's a bit of a distance to drive. I'm used to driving all over town. Some of these families only have one vehicle. And so this is going to be a hardship for them. So I'm wondering, did we explore other options, because I thought we had, but I could be mistaken, President Garcia Morales, I thought we had explored that maybe with community centers. I know there was one constituent that talked about that possibly we could use community centers or something that were more, kind of centrally located for these folks to be able to attend in person. So I just want to throw that out there right now because I'm getting these messages and they want to know what can be done.
Yeah.
And they may not be, they're not close enough to Trustee Barone to be able to go over and use his Wi-Fi. Okay, so, just a thought, what can we do?
Create Trustee Baron's hotspot. No, we don't want that for sure. I can tell you that we have, just based off of the list that we have for meetings that are in person, the things that were taken into consideration were regions. And I respect that that we would all like sessions at every trustee's area. We had to take into consideration the trustee, the elected member and their respected area, and the individual representative from a local municipality, right, for our non-voting members. So this is why regions were selected, and you'll see here Las Vegas Academy, which is listed several times, is in the most central part of our city. It has access to it along with a range of virtual opportunities and workshops. So at this point in time, what's not up for action is the changes of the locations for in-person sessions. What is up for discussion and action is the number of additional virtual focus groups. I am totally present to desire to continue to gain feedback from members of our community who may not have broad access to maybe Wi-Fi, or I think the concern was location. So I wonder if there's another opportunity for us to plug in at a different time, not today, because of what we have today is only focus group action item on adding virtual focus group options. And the board.
Yeah, and just to the trustees, we serve at the pleasure of the board. Whatever you guys want in terms of number and where and when, I mean, those are just decisions you have to make. They're not an item tonight for action. But I just want you to know that we will staff what you want. We serve at the pleasure of the board. So please know that.
Thank you for that. We could add more workshops, and just want to remind the board that last time we chose not to because there was a significant fiscal impact that was added that would be added to the package. I think that's one of the reasons why we chose the first option. I do want to bring up Mr. Caruso to come walk us through.
Madam President, I had a quick follow-up, but I don't know if you want
yes.
me to wait until Mr. Caruso kind of goes, because it might answer my question.
Do you want to ask your question? Maybe he'll answer it.
Okay, maybe he will. I just wanted to find out, when we're talking about, as far as, the team that is working together, our two liaisons, and then your role as president, is this within that planning where these decisions were made for these locations? And I'd also, if she is amenable to it, since I'm talking about our districts in East Las Vegas, I wondered if Trustee Zamora wanted to weigh in on this at all, or if you wanted to wait on that.
I don't see Trustee Zamora's head moving. You are? Yes? Okay. Okay. This will be the last comment before we turn it over to Joe. Thank you.
And thank you, Madam President. And I just want to be clear, you keep mentioning that this is not an action item for the locations, but I think we're just put in a difficult situation because this is already public. And yes, there's some in LVA that you mentioned, but those are for licensed and support professionals, not for parents or student groups. So I just wanted to put that just for transparency, right? Because LVA, yes, sounds nice because it's center, but it's not for the groups that we're trying to advocate for.
Yes, and I come back to, you're absolutely right. Thank you for clarifying that. And I want to be present to the item here on the agenda is about the additional virtual workshops. So if we do want to if the board has a desire to add additional meetings, that is an action item that will have to come before the board at either a special meeting or a future regular meeting. Joe Caruso?
Madam President, members of the board, Joe Caruso for the record. So the decision point is noted on page 3 of 5, reference 3.01B, and that is to add the 17 additional virtual meetings at a total expenditure of $5,100. At the last meeting, Trustee Guzman, to answer your question, you were presented with different models. The first model, which was approved, was the 32 meetings. The second model, Model 2, which was for 50, that was an additional cost of $5,400. The third model was 60 meetings, which was an additional cost of $8,400. And then the fourth model was 84 meetings at an additional cost of $15,600. So I know that the decision was to go with that first option and to minimize the cost. On the same note, the ask last time, and just to remind everyone, the board has already committed $79,000 for the RFP. The board has committed $16,410 for professional services. That includes the interpretation of the surveys, miscellaneous, with the caveat, if I need to move money from the professional services to the next account, which is travel, you authorize $50,000 for travel of the candidates, with the caveat if I need to move money from the travel to other professional services. So as of now, you've already committed $145,410 for this process. I know that that is something that all of you have asked repeatedly, where are we at? So just to full transparency, and I know Trustee Guzman, that was one of your points before, where are we at? So that's as of now. So then again, the decision point of this, are we adding 17 more virtual meetings for an additional $5,100? That is, I think, where our marching orders are what we're needing. So hopefully, Trustee Garcia Morales, I answered your question.
Thank you, Joe. Please stay up here because there is several other members who are in the queue, and I want to honor that in case there's additional questions that you may be able to help us from a logistical perspective. All right, Trustee Satori, you're up in the queue.
I believe you answered my question, actually. My question was on this action item, particularly with the 9 parent focus groups, could that 9 be adjusted to not be all virtual, to be, say, 4 virtual, 5 in person, and still, and how that would change the price? But is this item not able to be amended to adjust that? Or like you said, President Garcia Morales, I think you said it needs to be at a future meeting, but I just wanted to clarify if we need to stick to this virtual platform.
No, Joe.
Madam President?
Yes, thank you.
The numbers that Member Satori, the numbers that you're looking at are based on those virtual registrations. So to try and manipulate the number that you're seeing between the virtual and the in-person, I'm not sure that that's apples to apples because
we don't know if those people would attend. We know
this recommendation is based on the virtual
I think
registration.
this is a question for council. This is a question for council as to whether or not they can, approve something that's slightly different than what's here.
The item says approval of additional focus group virtual meetings, but to the point that Ms. Adams just brought up, those are specifically people who signed up for a virtual option. So I don't know that giving them an in-person one would help them if they signed up for virtual.
President Morales, if I can add,
Yes.
the numbers that we're seeing for in-person are manageable at this time. So based on the conversation from Member Barron as well as Member Cavazos, they're looking at adding a meeting in North Las Vegas and a meeting in East Las Vegas.
Correct, and that specifically is not on the agenda at
Correct.
this time. So we're not able to take action on that particular piece, but the request has been heard and could be an item we bring before the board at a future board meeting. So I'd like to be clear about that.
But currently, right now, as Ms. Adams said, the people who have signed up to go in person before knowing the sites is at a manageable number. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Trustee Satori, your
Oh, my
mic
apologies.
is still, you're good? Okay, thank you. All right, Trustee Guzman?
So I'd like to make a motion, President Garcia Morales, to approve, now I want to make sure I'm doing this right, Joe, so if you'll help me out, to approve the virtual meetings for the $5,100, is that correct? The 17, and that it'll come back to the board if there are additional meetings needed, is that correct? I'm
That is correct.
asking. Okay, all right, so my motion is that we approve the $5,100 for the 17 virtual meetings for the people who have already signed up.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Is that you? Yeah, okay, thank you. Trustee Sparsa again?
I will second that motion. Before you have, I would just like to add a solution for recommendation and consideration. I think we heard loud and clear that the distribution of the groups seem a little bit inequitable. So I know that Trustee Guzman mentioned that in the future we'd have to bring this back as an item for consideration. Can we revisit and look at the regions and make sure in the future that if we should have this conversation, the distribution be more equitable between the groups, parents and students? So can we do it regionally? I think that would really help foster.
But not by regions.
The group,
It has been done by.
it's done by region, but the groupings, revisit the groupings is what I'm asking you to do.
Maybe I'm not understanding the question.
It's a future,
I'm not
it's a
sure I-
future.
I'm not sure I fully understand what, I don't understand.
So
I'm sorry, Nancy Perez.
it's a future conversation we can discuss, but I did
Yes.
second the motion.
And I believe that's part of the motion already. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues, thank you, Trustee Guzman, for the motion. Thank you, Trustee Sparsa again. I went through all the members in my head, and thank you. Trustee Sparsa again for the second. Colleagues, we have a motion on the floor. I'd like to request. Oh, I see. Okay, forgive me, colleagues. So we have an active motion, but we still have members in the queue. Council, all right. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question for council. So for example, I'm looking at the previous sheet where it has the recommendations from the last meeting. Right now, if we vote to get the virtual added focus groups for the amount of 5,100, then we're there. Additionally, we can add it next meeting if we need to, right? But is there a scenario where the motion does not pass, and in the next meeting, we can get added the recommended model from Focus Group Model 2 to the agenda, where it's only $300 more, and it adds 18 more focus groups, and those being more flexible of in-person and virtual?
Theoretically, yes, you could take no action on well, I guess you're already starting action. So the motion could fail and that could be a thing. However, I'm not sure if some of these groups were set to occur before the next meeting, then it's going to be a problem because they're going to have to cancel them.
Well,
We haven't sectioned the groups out yet, but they are next week. So the majority of all of these needs are next week so that we don't have these large groups. They've already registered. It's just that we want to section them into smaller, numerous focus groups rather than, like I said, one huge one. And they are next week.
So you'd be leaving them with groups of 102 and 257 for next week if this
Yes.
motion failed.
Yes.
That doesn't prevent you from taking subsequent action at the next meeting to add more groups, though.
and those would be it wouldn't be limited to the virtual option. Those we can be more flexible with.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to walk through scenarios. Thank you, council.
I also want to rise up or lift up that the price points that were provided to us at the last meeting were reflective of, may change as a result of additional meetings. that may be required in person. I just want to give HYA that space to potentially come back to bring us a different price point, since we are looking for specific meetings and maybe a number of specific meetings. Okay. Trustee Barron, you're next in the queue.
Yeah, again, I think I recall not that long ago when I was actually sitting out there in the crowd, of course, before I was sworn in, and I recall that this board was making a big deal about the languages that would be addressed during the superintendent search. I wasn't, I didn't even, of course, Spanish and Tagalog are fantastic. And then, of course, you also even mentioned the different dialects of Chinese. I didn't even know there was a new way to address them. But the way it seems to me here that the manner in which this is parsed out, and again, I will just reiterate, other than the meeting there in Mojave, unless we want to count, I guess, where is it, Moapa, way out there, or Overton, right? There's nothing. There's nothing on the north side. Even if we think about North Las Vegas, there's actually like the southern part of North Vegas that I know of that's 70% Latino, and then of course we have a couple of the wards there that have very high concentrations of African American, and further out we have a really diverse population. We're not engaging. The one thing that this community wanted more than anything else was to be engaged. They wanted to weigh in, and I will say categorically that large swaths of our population are being left out. If we were not going to have these conversations in these communities within a walkable distance to large population centers, again, many of my residents, they rely, hey, I'm really happy I'm the vice chair of the RTC because many of my residents, they rely on the RTC to get around town. And thank God we have it, or else, the Strip would not be able to function without that. Again, I would reiterate, whether you're on the east side, and I'm sure that there's a lot of schools where the parents definitely want to be heard, that they want to know that, that the next person that's going to come in is going to hear them, is going to represent them. I still say that, why do we even bother with all the different commentary on the different languages if we weren't actually going to do anything about it? I get this, that there is there's a timeline that is adhered to. It just seems that this entire process is rushed. It's rushed, and I think that many of the communities that I represent in North Las Vegas are not going to be represented. They're not going to be represented, and there will be items of contention, there will be bones of contention with this entire process going forward. It's more of a comment more than anything else. Thank you.
I think we're ready for the vote. Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Esparza-Strophigan. Please, can we take that back? I'm going to have Trustee Guzman restate the motion, please.
So the motion is to direct Mr. Caruso to do a budget request for the $5,100 for the virtual meetings for the people who have already signed up, the 17 additional meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Esparza-Strophigan, do you still second?
I will second the motion, but with a request to the maker of the motion to amend it to include that we will have other considerations for adapting the scheduling based on community request and need.
I accept that. I just thought that was already implied and decided by the president that would come back. Okay. All right.
Yes. It is, and I want to be clean about this motion.
Yes.
Can we please
I'll restate it.
And
so, because I'm supposed to, So the motion is to direct Mr. Caruso to do a budget request for the $5,100 for the 17 additional virtual focus group meetings.
All right, thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Sparsa-Strophigan? Is your mic on?
Yeah, her mic's on.
As long as, I will second the motion as long as it is implied that we will meet the needs of the community and adapt the schedule in the future.
I want to be clear that that's actually not part of the motion, but in totality, but I see that and I already I'm working on a plan to make sure to bring it before another meeting. So your comment is mostly a comment, and I will accept your comment, but it's not a part of the actual motion. I want to be clear about that. If you would like not to second, you're welcome to take that back. It's up to you.
I will second the motion so we can move forward.
Thank you, Trustee Sparsa-Strophigan. All right, colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Sparsa-Strophigan. Please cast your votes. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 5-0. All right, and I want to give everyone a reassurance that I will bring something back to the board at our next regular meeting with considerations of, I heard parent and student groups in person in East Las Vegas and North Las Vegas specifically. And I'll work with HYA through Joe and council to ensure that we have different price points to reflect what that looks like for members who have requested that to serve all of us. Got it? Okay. I'm going to turn off colleagues' microphones here and move on to turn it back over to Nancy. Please take it away.
Great. Next item, item number 5. Just a reminder that in-person focus groups, we really would appreciate and require that registration. Invites have been sent based on the person's affiliation with the district. Next slide, we've already touched on this. These are the locations for in-person sessions. You also have a secondary handout that has every single focus group, including the virtual ones by constituent group. Next slide, item number 6. Just best practice here, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about the trustees' roles at focus groups. You know, obviously the intention is to gain feedback. We would advise trustees against coming to focus groups for licensed support and admin, i.e. the employees, so that individuals feel they can speak freely. These are supposed to be focus groups where they are able to trust the environment, feel that they can speak freely, and sometimes their boss's boss, which are all of you, can inhibit that. So that's something I wanted to mention as a best practice. If there is a desire for members to come to community focus groups, parents, students, community, please know that you would be present to observe the process, not to participate, and that we would appreciate you letting Joe and Nicole know so they can determine whether or not there is more people that want to go than should go, so that there's not a quorum, and the necessary protocols that would need to be in place. Any questions about trustees' roles at focus groups?
Okay, I see one question or one person in the queue. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Dr. Perez, for that guidance. I'm going to just jump right into the trenches here and tell you that the very first group that asked me to please attend at least one of their focus groups were the licensed professionals. The second one was, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, license, support, parents, students, administrators, and electeds have all asked me to attend at least one. I would be happy to keep my mouth shut and to sit in the back and to just take notes and not to talk. But if we are going to respect the community's desire to have us there and to show an interest in the process, I can be quiet and sit in the back and not participate and just take notes. So I just want to be very honest about that, but I also want to respect that as far as letting our liaisons know if we are going to be attending, so that if, say, I've already attended one of the license groups and there are other trustees, I will cede that to other people who want to be there for that. And I lean more toward the in-person groups, but, I'm willing to attend the virtual ones too. But I just wanted to put that out there and be very transparent about it. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you for that. And clearly there's a different feeling here, a different culture. So I applaud that and I thank you for that. Those are ultimately your decisions.
And as a body specifically, I'm open to hearing feedback from members broadly about this. We're hearing our experts, our contracted support through the search process for the hundreds of searches that HYA has done. Their expertise is telling us, through their expertise and their experience, they're telling us that it is best practice for board members to not be present at staff-specific focus groups because it changes the power dynamic. If we are there really to truly hear feedback, that we want to ensure that staff can speak freely. So I am in support of HYA's recommendation that our body not attend those staff meetings. However, we work with Joe and council to provide any dates that we have a desire to attend that are community-based, anybody else outside of staff and professionals. And as a body, we would probably we would benefit tremendously from having unity around this space. Like everything that we do here moving forward, both externally and internally, will play a role in who chooses to apply to this position. And we, as a body, tremendously benefit from having a unified presence and decision when it comes to showing up. All right, no additional feedback from colleagues. That means that everyone's okay with Trustee Cavazos attending the staff focus groups. And does that mean that everybody else has a desire to attend the staff focus groups? Because I think it may be helpful to have that discussion up front here, so we know and are clear about our expectations. Okay, I don't see any dissent, and I don't see any support. So, thank you, Trustee Baron.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I guess the big thing is many of us, of course, have very tight communications with all the people that we work with, right? And they might actually be inviting us, to sit in. And I myself, I just think that it should be. I accept, of course, that recommendation. I do have an endorsement for admin. That's where I got my master's degree in. Never used it, of course. But one thing that my teacher did tell me, you always, if you're an administrator, you want to stay out of the staff room. Okay, stay out of the staff lunchroom. But in this case, again, with taking in consideration and it's a very good. It's a very good recommendation. If we're invited, I think it definitely should be up to each trustee to be a big person and weigh out the impact that they would have going to one of these things that you get invited to.
All right, I don't see any other comments in the queue. I do want the record to reflect that as a body, I believe that we are working together to ensure that we create unity, to show our candidates that we are absolutely unified in our approach. And I appreciate everybody's desire and recommendation to follow the recommendations of HYA, who has years of experience leading boards through successful superintendent searches. So thank you for that. Nancy, please keep us going. Nancy, did we lose you?
Sorry, I muted myself. Sorry. Item number 7, the Clark County website, a link to the survey and a link to the request for the invitations are both on the website. We've discussed this already. and that people have requested invitations and they were sent. Next slide. Item number 8, we did send home with you tonight and in the board book, the material for the September 4th board work session. I guess I was lucky because I know we started off this conversation tonight and talking about getting you materials earlier. I wasn't really planning it this way, but I'm glad that you can see that whenever we can, and the information is not timely, we'll do that. And so tonight, there's nothing to talk about other than to remind you that we have given you the materials that will be the topic of the September 4th board work session tonight. And that's it for tonight. Final slide is just any other questions. I know you've asked them along the way, but that concludes the update.
Okay, colleagues, are there any other questions for HYA at this time? See, we got all of our questions answered. Thank you for that. Trustee Cavazos, I see you in the queue. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify what Dr. Perez just said, so that these interview protocols workshop, these are for our September work session, where we will be discussing these in detail, where if we do have specific questions, we'll be able to bring them to the forefront at that time.
Yes.
Yes, and this is, and it starts off with the workshop and what we see as the process moving forward into that interview phase, into that select phase. But it's, there's a lot of thoughts in there and different options. We'll talk you through them, but ultimately we do want to come to consensus about how we are going to move through the next phase so that we can be transparent with candidates. They know what to expect. We know how to plan for it. And so I think you'll find that it's really a helpful document. It goes through the first interview, what we're recommending for that. The second interview talks, about questions that you should and should not ask, all kinds of just good information. And we will walk you through all of it. But ultimately, you're absolutely right. These are all board decisions. We will give you best practice. We will help you, to stay true to the process that's proven to be successful. But there are a lot of decisions ultimately for the board to make in terms of how it wants to move forward throughout the select phase.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to add a question in this space. Nancy, how much time should we dedicate to this particular part of the workshop or on September 4th? How much, based off of your experience working with boards, how much time should we dedicate for this meeting?
I think 1 hour is sufficient.
Maybe 2 hours for our board.
Well, I was thinking that tonight was going to be 30 minutes, so.
Okay, well, let's backwards math that. We have an engaged board who is enthusiastic and motivated to find the best candidate. So grateful to my colleagues for that. So let's dedicate 3 hours, colleagues, at minimum for this particular item. And we have other items that will take place in that agenda as well. So let's just keep adding hours to that.
And ultimately, the more that we decide and make these decisions up front, the smoother the process goes for everyone. I mean, the fact that we agreed to a calendar early on and we're staying to that, it really helps and makes it possible that we can fulfill your goal of having a superintendent in place on November 1st. So I really do appreciate that. I know it's a lot of upfront time, but it does pay off.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
I actually just wanted to thank the board for, it's been great working with you all. I think the engagement and the feedback, it's been a very smooth process because of all of the questions, the detail, the insight. It just helps us help you and your community work better. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sparza-Stroff, I see you in the queue.
Dr. Perez, thank you for bringing the homework ahead of time. I really need the time. Speaking of, I did dip into it, and it's not even directed to your organization, it's directed to our board. There was a mention of certain colleagues that might be attending a conference. And there is in the documents, it talks about having all trustees present for interviews. So I just want us to have a conversation at the next meeting about that, if we can address that as well. Board President Garcia Morales.
Yeah, I do think that that's really, really important. It is really the most important action this board will take, and everything it does is to hire your chief executive officer. And we know that that's best done when all members are present.
Yeah.
And so anything that we can do to work with the schedule to make all people present, it's not only good for the board and your culture of coming together, but it also is quite a signal to the candidates that you are unified and that you are together and you know how important this task is. So anything we can do to help, but absolutely it is our recommendation that the board be present for the interviews in person.
IRL, in real life. Thank you, colleagues, for that engagement. I appreciate it and look forward to the next time, September 4th, when HYA comes before us again. I believe that concludes your presentation. HYA Board Counsel and Joe, is there anything that you want to add at this time? Yeah, okay, we've got it. Marching orders. We'll circle back for our next meeting with the additions that were requested of colleagues based off of the discussion today around additional community groups, and we'll work with HYA to make sure that there's some representation and can help us potentially our next meeting. Is that too soon? Is it possible? Yeah. Can we make that happen? Well, there will be a discussion at our next regular board meeting. Where are we? August? September? That September 4th is the next? Okay.
Yes, September 4th is the next meeting, and I will see you guys then.
Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Kawita. Thank you, Dr. Joseph. All right, colleagues, we're going to move on to the Audit Advisory Committee appointment. This is an action item. We will take individuals who have signed up in advance. I'm sorry, we do have, this is an action item, so anybody who would like to sign up for this particular item, please submit your yellow card. The Audit Advisory Committee is a committee of, I'm going to go ahead with the presentation and then move forward with discussion, public comment, and then discussion, excuse me, colleagues. According to GP 10, construction of the agenda, as board president have the ability to add items. This is an item that needs some attention. The Audit Advisory Committee is a committee that is a board committee, and we have appointments. These appointment terms end, there are 2-year appointments, and we, as a result of the recent 2-year appointment expiration date, we requested applications to be public and listed, so we've received several applications. The term for this Audit Advisory Committee is to fill the vacancy of one member, is for 2 years, beginning August 22nd, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. Okay. Is there any public comment on this particular item? I don't see any. Otherwise, we will go ahead and go straight into discussion and action. At this time, colleagues, ultimately seeking an action, a motion, excuse me, to move us forward. So right now what we're seeing is on the screen is the first application. I want to just go through them here for a second. Can we please keep going and scrolling down? So we have this first application. I want to actually take a moment to pause. Colleagues, would it serve you to have the physical, some of you to have the physical copies of these presentations, these agenda applications? It would not serve us? Okay. I believe Mr. Caruso, I want to just take a moment to pause here. I believe Mr. Caruso is picking up those physical copies from the front, and we'll be getting this to us. So just hang tight, please. Cue elevator music. Maybe some lo-fi music. I don't know. Maybe that is elevator music. Jeopardy music. Joe, forgive me, can you please get us some physical copies of the agenda, the reference material we need? Oh, forgive me, Yeah, thank you. For members. I'm going to take this time to go over the role of the CCSD Audit Advisory Committee. It is, the role of the committee is to advise the board in the following areas: strengthen accountability for the stewardship and efficient use of public funds, provide a communication link between the external internal auditors and the board, enhance transparency of the district's financial operations, and improve public trust in the honesty and integrity of its public officials. There is I'm reading from the Audit Advisory Committee bylaws and calendar. The membership of the committee shall consist of 5 community members who shall be appointed by the Board of Trustees. Committee members shall serve without compensation for renewal, staggered 2-year terms. When a vacancy occurs on the Audit Advisory Committee, the committee chairperson will notify the Board of Trustees, the president on the vacancy. All trustees will be invited to submit names of candidates to fill the vacancy. In this case, that was communicated to us via email. The applications went live, and individuals applied and submitted their names for consideration. Each committee member shall, in the judgment of the board, meet the following criteria. Independence: committee members shall not be employees or contractors of the district, nor shall any members of the member's household or any person who is related to the member by blood, adoption, or marriage within the 3rd degree of consanguinity or affinity be employees or contractors of the district. Right, members shall adhere to the laws of the state of Nevada governing conflicts of interest and ethics relating to public officers, excuse me. Committee members shall not be currently employed by the district or provide goods or services contractually to the district within the last 2 years. Financial expertise: each committee member shall be a financial expert who possesses the experience and skills necessary to understand complex and technical financial reporting issues with credentials from one or more of the following areas: business finance, legal, accounting, auditing, and government and/or corporate finance. One member must have professional expertise in governmental accounting. In good faith, members of the committee shall perform their duties in good faith in a manner that they are reasonably believed to be in the best interest of the committee and the district, for which such care as generally prudent person in a similar position would use under similar circumstances. Members of the committee will act in a manner consistent with the mission and policy of the district. Okay. Applicants and new committee members shall receive an appropriate orientation briefing, including principles of balanced governance. The district shall provide committee members with educational resources related to the district accounting topics, principles, and procedures. And in the audit bylaws, there is information regarding the responsibilities. The committee is responsible for is a recommending body to the board, administration, and auditors. The committee has no policy-making authority and no administrative authority. Any recommendations it makes shall not substitute for any required review and acceptance by the board. And the annual audit report prepared by the independent auditor shall not be deemed final until accepted by a resolution by the board, which is what happens every year. The audit comes before us with the audit committee, and we are the ones who make the final decision on accepting the audit. The committee shall not consider the alleged misconduct or professional conduct of a person, and the parameters of the committee's responsibilities are defined by the Audit Advisory Committee responsibilities calendar. It's not the responsibility or the duty of the committee to plan or conduct audits to determine that the financial statements are complete, accurate, in accordance with generally accepting accounting principles. Okay, thank you, colleagues. I see a couple members in the queue, and I'd like to turn it over to you. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, our names got switched around, so it was actually Trustee Zamora that was first, and I was second, so I wondered
Take
if...
yourself off the queue then. Turn off your mic. We'll turn it over to Trustee Zamora.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. I actually am ready to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to appoint Chris G. And I might need help to pronounce her last name.
June Kiliani.
June Kiliani to the Audit Advisory Board.
Thank you. Do I have a second, colleagues? Okay, and then I'll take discussion. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sorry for that mix-up. Yes, with great pleasure, I would like to second Trustee Zamora's motion at this time. I have, anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, great. Colleagues, I will turn it to comment. Trustee, discussion, excuse me, at this time. Trustee Baron?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just, if there was a third, I think I would be, if there was such a thing as a third, breaking, of course, the rules, Robert, I would be doing that. I just think, I was really impressed with an actual CPA guy who applied. For such a position as this, I think it goes way beyond just a guy who could do a person who could do simple math or do complex math. And I think Chris June Kiliani's extent, she's probably forgotten more about education than most people even know. And that as a classroom teacher, as a state legislator, and of course as a county commissioner, I think her reputation is beyond question in this. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. I just want to ask Mr. Gowdy, if you don't mind, because I want to ensure that I'm making an educated decision. And so these are these our budgets, or these I'm trying to understand and make sure that the person that we're replacing comes from my district. So I'm very conscious of what we are replacing. And so I just want to make sure that the focus of this committee is about reviewing our audits, is it not?
Mr. Gowdy?
Madam President, members of the board, Deputy or Interim Superintendent Dr. Larson, Ms. Gerald J. Gowdy for the record. So one of the primary purposes of this group is ultimately the financial controls and to assist the board in reviewing audits and understanding the internal controls and financial matters of the district. Several years ago, this group was created. The board does not necessarily have all of the detailed financial expertise that's needed, so they have put together this group, which is a group of financial audit and other experts that understand that world, that then provide, they review our internal audit plan, they review our internal controls, they review our financial statements and our audits, and then provide guidance back to the board and assurance that they've reviewed and they feel comfortable with these sorts of items.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Before I turn it back over to Trustee Cavazos, I want to offer members who have not had a chance to share their discussion to please do that, to jump in the queue. Otherwise, I will jump in. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Gowdy. And I do respect my colleagues, and I do respect Chris G., but my preference from a financial controls and internal controls would be not to support that. And I just want to put that on the record for Chris, that as much experience as that you do have at local government, as a volunteer at school and such, my preference would be for the CPA.
Thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. I want to echo your sentiments and express that the application for the other candidate has over 20 years in financial accounting. I also want to be mindful of our policy that specifically states and asks for the membership to, committee member to each have financial expertise and be a financial expert who possesses the experience and skills necessary to understand the complex and tackle financial reporting issues with credentials from one or more of the following areas. So in the application on page 1 of the candidate currently on the motion, listed, they do not have professional expertise in governmental accounting and do not have children. Well, that's not relevant to this particular piece, but that's what I'm looking at as a basis of making my decision. Trustee Sparsa-Strophigan, I'm going to go to you and then pop over to members who've already shared their comments. Trustee Sparsa-Strophigan?
So we have a vacancy. Who was the previous candidate in the role?
This is a committee, an appointment by the entire board, so it can come from any member's district.
So for the record, I heard our clerk, Trustee Guzman, say the individual that was previously in the position was Anna Binder. Okay. So my view is a little different. I can look at a person's resume and say they're highly qualified, sometimes overly qualified, and it doesn't really tell me their work ethic or their focus. I don't know the other individuals and their experience with, obviously, definitely with financials is very extensive. But I think my leaning would be towards Christian Cleani because she has all of the boxes checked in every other area and aspect. And I think that's the piece that we have to look at, is we are replacing actually a parent advocate from that committee who had a very unique lens. And so I just would question, if we're bringing someone based just on the resume, it's hard for me to go with individuals just looking at that alone. So I would be in favor of supporting Christian Caliani.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cavazos, I think you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. And I had made that second and not added this other material. I carefully considered all 3 of these candidates and was impressed with all of their experience. I only know one of them, and that is the one that I seconded, Chris June. I'm going to say Chris G, so I don't mess it up. But I hope that everybody is looking at her experience, not only as a legislator or as a volunteer, but if you'll look on page 1 of 15, why do you want to serve on this committee? I formed an audit committee as a first-time county commissioner. They have a bit of a large budget also, and she chaired it as well as vice-chaired it, and she served on the audit committee for 11 years. You go to the next page, on page 2 of 15, and it says, highlight your experiences or credentials in one of the following areas: government or corporate finance, accounting, auditing, and/or legal. So I'm going to skip the rest of the directions there. And she writes, I was vice chair of Ways and Means. I oversaw state budgets, not district, not county, but state budgets on prisons, health, aging, many others. Member in the legislature of Growth and Infrastructure. I chaired elections and ethics. As president of my union, I formed the annual budget for approval, oversaw our audit committee. So yes, her experience as a volunteer in the schools, her experience as a legislator is very important, but you will see here that she has the audit experience here. And the other thing that I want to put in is something that Trustee Esparza-Strophigan referred to, and that was simply that, you know, we don't see the whole person just from the resume. We have seen Chris. I've seen Chris attend virtually and in person audit committee meetings. I cannot say that these other 2 individuals have not, you know, but I don't know them, so I don't know if they have attended or not. Chris G has, and she's been there. She has sent in messages, emails about what has happened at the audit committee meetings. She's there as not only somebody who has the expertise, but she's also a community person who knows the demographics of this community. So again, I want to second that motion, and I want to ask my colleagues who have expressed different preferences to please reconsider. She is the best option for this position. Thank you.
All right, thank you, colleagues. Let's go ahead and, I don't see anybody else in the queue. Let's go ahead and call, take the vote. Trustee, we have a motion by Trustee Zamora and a second by Trustee Cavazos for Chris Giunciliani. Lots of years of practice. Chris Giunciliani's appointment of the Audit Advisory Committee application committee member. Can we please call the vote, please? Thank you. Okay, colleagues, that motion passes 3-2. All right, colleagues, we are going to move on to item 3.03, Notice of Intent for CCSD Regulation 5150. Before I open this item, is there anyone who would like to provide public comment and has not had a chance to submit their public speaker card? Please do so now. Okay, otherwise, after the presentation, once we begin the presentation, we will no longer accept public speaker cards. And then once we enter the presentation, we'll take public comment and then discussion. Turn it over to Dr. Cortez and team.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell. I'm Monica Cortez, Chief of Student Services Division, and I'm here with Sherry McPartland, Clark County School District's Chief Nurse. Thank you for allowing us to share with you the Community Notice of Intent, Clark County School District Regulation 5150. I would like to thank the many individuals who invested their time and expertise in ensuring that the language in this regulation reflects current Nevada revised statutes, our policies, new laws, and to ensure we're providing the necessary guidance for our students' health and safety. Tonight, we'll provide a summary of recommended adjustments to Regulation 5150 and cleanup of language to align with the NRS laws and district health policies. I would like to share that this regulation was established in 1962 with multiple revisions over time. However, the most recent update before tonight was 2012. With your permission, Madam President or Vice President, I will move forward with sharing with the board those highlights. Thank you. Please refer to page 5, Roman numeral 3, medication during school hours, letter C, number 2. It references that parent and guardian must provide the signed document called Parent Guardian Request for Medication Assistance Form. It is important to note that the prescription medications, the pharmacy label represents the licensed prescribing practitioner's order. For over-the-counter medication, a copy of the prescription or order from a licensed prescribing practitioner is also required. All medications must include the full name of the student along with the dosage, route, and time or frequency of the medication, the name of the licensing prescribing practitioner, and the instructions for administration. Bringing your attention to letter E, it stresses the importance that all medications must be stored in a locked location, with the exception of a student's prescribed epinephrine or EpiPen shall be stored in a secured location which will remain unlocked during the regular school day. Letter F references that a student requiring care for diabetes and or insulin must have a current order or a treatment plan by a prescribing prescription licensed practitioner. It also has to have written parent permission, including emergency protocols, and the parent or guardian is responsible for medication, supplies, equipment, and for the student care. Now, we're moving on to Roman numeral 4, emergency medication on page 6. We restated this section addressing the necessary information regarding emergency medication. Emergency medication referenced here is outlined in the Nevada Revised Statute, NRS 392.425. This references that the parent or guardian must submit a written request that the student is permitted to carry and self-administer their medication. Along with that written permission, the licensed prescribing practitioner must provide a signed written statement, order, or treatment plan under which the student will manage their medical need. It also outlines the necessary components that are required to be listed on the medication. The next item we would like to bring to your attention is on page 7, letter C, stock epinephrine and naloxone, also referred to as Narcan. It is available at all school sites following NRS 386.870 and NRS 453C.040. Each school has doses of Narcan that is in an unlocked secured location at the site that trained personnel may use with regard to any person believed to be experiencing a possible overdose of opioids during the school day. Number 4 references that if auto-injectable epinephrine or an opioid antagonist is provided or administered during the rendering of emergency care or assistance during an emergency at a public school, school district, or employee of a school district, is not liable for any error or omission concerning the acquisition, possession, provision, or administration. Now, if I can direct your attention to page 10, Roman numeral 6, contagious or infectious diseases. Along with following NRS 441A.190, the district chief nurse will communicate and collaborate with the Southern Nevada Health District to obtain guidance regarding control of communicable and infectious diseases within schools and the process required with contagious or infectious disease protocols. The administrator or person in charge of a school who knows or suspects the presence of a communicable and/or infectious disease within the school must notify designated district administrators. The last section in Roman numeral 6 references to prevent the spread of communicable and infectious diseases. A parent or guardian or person having custody of a student who has a communicable or infectious disease shall not knowingly permit the student to attend school. Lastly, and most recently, we would like to review Roman numeral 7, injuries to the head, concussion protocols on page 11. In this section, we made explicit adjustments to the language to ensure that there is specific information that supports the new head injury concussion law that was effective July 1st, 2024. This information on the policy is clearly outlined for our public to view at ccsd.net. Go to Parents, go to Additional Information, and then Concussion Protocol, as well as it is located in the Back to School section of the website for policy regarding prevention and treatment of injuries to the head. All parents and guardians of students engaging in competitive sports are given the policy and required to sign the form acknowledging the risks of head injury prior to participating. Currently, this is being implemented in the Register My Athlete process. Specific items to note is that outlined in this policy, for any child that is suspected or sustained an injury to the head, the district provides the parent or guardian a written or electronic copy of the policy, and as a reminder, is also outlined for the families on the district website. For these students who are considered to have a suspected or sustained head injury during the instructional day, during athletic activities, or an event outside the school setting that is communicated to the health office, will be monitored for signs or symptoms. Then an assessment called Return to Learn is followed in collaboration with the concussion management team, and they develop a concussion management plan pertinent to that student's specific needs. Letter F refers to return to play, which is conducted by the athletic trainer and is only for students involved in NIAA-sanctioned sports. This process occurs when a student no longer exhibits any signs or symptoms of the head injury and does not require any accommodations. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board, for your time. We are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues for discussion and action. Trustee Satori?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I thought that was really good changes throughout there. It really adds a lot of clarity in a lot of areas. So I would like to make a motion to adopt Regulation 5150, Health and Welfare of Students as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Satori. Do we have a second in Trustee Sparsa-Strophagan?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Sparsa-Strophagan. Colleagues, we have a motion, but, oh, thank you for that. Ooh, there is no public comment actually on that item. We are good to go, but I want to make sure that it's clear on the record. We do have a motion for approval of policy 5150 by Trustee Satori, a second by Trustee Sparsa-Strophagan. Please cast your votes. Thank you, colleague. The motion passes 5-0.
Thanks so much, Monica, for reading all of that.
All right. Public hearing and approval. This is item 3.04, colleagues. Public hearing and approval of the 2024 medium-term bond authorization resolution. This is the time and place that was published on August 12th, 2024 to conduct a public hearing on discussion of and possible action on approval of the 2024 medium-term bond authorization resolution, authorizing the sale and assurance of medium-term obligations in the amount of up to $50 million in order to finance all, no, am I reading that right? No, yes. In order, yes, to finance all or a portion of the cost of acquiring, improving, and equipping school facilities, including transportation vehicles and facilities, and technology equipment and facilities, authorizing for the interim superintendent or the chief financial officer to specify the terms of the bonds, and for the president and the clerk of the school board of trustees to sign the necessary documents is recommended. Mr. Gowdy?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Dr. Larson Mitchell, Jason Gowdy for the record. So we come annually for this request. Last year we did not, because we did not issue our general obligation bonds, so we utilized different funding mechanisms, but we anticipate getting approval from the Debt Management Commission next week and issuing additional bonds, and so these will be issued along with them. They will be used to purchase 84 school buses, about 109 White Fleet vehicles, and then around $28 million worth of technology, which is primarily focused on the networking and other capabilities required by our one-to-one device setup for all our students. And with that, I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thank you, colleagues. I do not want to neglect that this is an action item, and anybody who would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit your yellow card. Otherwise, we will no longer be taking public comments. There is no public comment on this particular item. Let's see. It's asked me to see if there's any discussion by the board and also to read this time and place for the public hearing. Which one do I do first? Do I read this comment? Colleagues, are you ready to make a motion or ready for discussion? Okay. So it seems like there is no discussion, so I'm going to go straight into the script here. This is the time and place that was published on August 12th to conduct a public hearing on discussion of and possible action on the approval of the 2024 medium-term bond authorization resolution, authorizing the sale and issuance of medium-term obligations in the amount of $50 million in order to finance all or portion of the cost of acquiring, improving, and equipping school facilities, including transportation vehicles and facilities and technology equipment and facilities, authorizing for the interim superintendent or the chief financial officer to specify the terms of the bond. Okay. This from based off of colleagues' readiness to move into action, I'm going to deem this public hearing now closed. Okay, Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the approval of the 2024 medium-term bond authorization resolution.
Thank you. Trustee Guzman.
I second.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Bustamante Adams, a second by Trustee Guzman. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gowdy. All right. We're going to move on now to public comment on items not listed as action items on the agenda. We're going to begin with individuals who signed up in advance. If anybody would like to speak on this item, please submit your yellow cards now. Otherwise, once we begin public comment, we will no longer accept public speaker cards. All right. Beginning with the individuals who signed up in advance, Greg Courier, are you present? Greg? Followed by Nicole Beer. Nicole, come on up. And then we have Robin Carpenter, followed by Mr. Bayless.
Nicole Beer for the record. I come to before you today to get several things on the record, but I did want to say that you're going to have two North Las Vegas teachers that are sitting. We were sitting right back there. Yes, we want sessions for our parents, our community. And I will say that we're a little tone deaf when we're talking about they can log in. During COVID, there were 3 students in our entire building of 600 students that had internet. So let's not be silly now. We don't need Nicole on something else. Today, I want to make certain that CCSD, from leadership to your legal team to trustees to principals, students, and our community, understand why libraries are exempt from what many refer to as AB 469, or what I like to call the bill that killed principal accountability. It is in fact now a law, NRS 385 et al. You need to look at the following areas: 385.361, 385.37607, 385.37603, 385.347, and 385.357. You'll find helpful pages and pages through 1972 through 1974. Please let these areas be understood by all those who wish to cry, quote, AB 64 lets me do whatever I want in my buildings, end quote. Understand that every time that region leadership lets principals mess with policy 6161, they are breaking regulation and the law. Not a policy, Nevada revised statutes. Trustee Garvey, Trustee Brooks, Dr. Jauer, Robin Carpenter, and myself began working on changes to policy 6161 beginning in August of 2019. Worked through COVID. Changes have been passed 4 times through this board, starting in 2021. Robin will come up in a minute with a list of schools that are breaking the law. Today, they broke the law. Today, tomorrow they'll break the law again. Isn't that right, Darla? My library is always closed. Richards over at McDaniel. Moms for Liberty has at least 12 federal cases pending against CCSD and individual schools, and in turn, those teacher librarians that are named in those cases. I should not have had to bring it I should not be the one to have had to put this on Trustee Cavazos' radar. As one of the biggest advocates of librarians and anti-book bannings on that dais, she was, of course, shocked that she was not aware of it. I certainly hope that CCSD has communicated to those teacher librarians that they may be sued personally and asked to testify in federal court. Lastly, over 300 librarians do not have a library coordinator. While Dr. Mansell's team tries very hard to help us, respectfully, they're not librarians. A group of librarians met with CPD leadership in May and added some necessary language. 2 internal and national searches have not been successful. I would suggest that this board creates a library task force that includes trustees, teacher librarians to strategize how leadership on how to find solutions to a vast array of problems that teacher librarians are facing. I think given your real-world examples of how dysfunctional policy 6161 is in many buildings, you created the law, library program under NRS 385. Now it's time to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please come on up, Robin.
Good evening. My name is Robin Carpenter. I'm a certified teacher librarian here tonight to talk to you about the well-being of school libraries in our district. In 2020, the board and the superintendent recognized through policy 6161 that school libraries and library programs are an important and integral part of the education of all students. Just a year ago, the board revised the policy further to mandate that each school's library be staffed by a certified teacher librarian, period. It was a fantastic day for students in CCSD. There was a trickle of non-compliance at the beginning of last school year when we saw many secondary principals using certified teacher librarians as long-term subs, gutting their library programs. We were told then by Dr. Jara and Dr. Larson-Mitchell that region superintendents and associate superintendents would begin checking on the library and library program during their one-on-ones with principals. I don't know if that ever happened, but I can tell you that the trickle of principals not following the policy has become a steady stream, and without correction will become a river that takes us right back to the days before this policy existed. Principals at Johnston, Hyde Park, Knutson, and Orr middle schools pushed effective and highly effective certified teacher librarians out of the library and back into the classroom. Now, none of those schools have a certified teacher librarian. At Hyde Park, the library is currently being used to teach orchestra, and students are not allowed to access the library. It would seem the intent at all 4 schools is to have no library program at all. These schools have a library staffed only with a long-term sub. Bowler Elementary, Goldfarb Elementary, Hancock Elementary, Herr Elementary, Johnston Middle School, Mountain View Elementary, Orr Middle School, and William Snyder Elementary. A long-term sub cannot administer an effective library program. Last year, Cunningham Elementary had a long-term sub in its library the whole year. This year, it has none at all. There's no effective library program there. There's no library program at Estes McDonald Elementary, although a classroom teacher was hired under the old system 2 years ago. The principal says classroom teachers are teaching all the library standards. That's not an effective library program. If libraries and library programs are the integral part of every school's education program that board belief and policy says they are, why are principals not being held accountable for following that policy? Because right now, without any consequence whatsoever, we have principals just folding their arms across their chests and saying to leadership and this board, I can do whatever I want. You aren't the boss of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. James? James Bayless, followed by Jennifer Donato Adams.
Good evening, James Bayless for the record. So I'm here to address, I guess, what was in public news for everywhere. Well, first I need to say thank you to the business community for cleaning up that error and getting me out of that situation. That was most appreciated. So let's go through a little timeline since my topic is true story. October 17th. Am I allowed to say names?
Mr. Bayless, you know, I'm going to pause your time for a second. You're a regular in our board meetings. I know you're familiar with our
I don't want to say
protocol
you
and
people when you
decorum.
people didn't do it.
Trustees.
Okay.
Members, those are some examples. And please remember that this is a recording. I'm not an attorney by any means, but you may want to be mindful of what
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say.
So a certain trustee with District B decided to come to Henderson on October 17th around 10:42, moved at 520 College Drive, ironically 5 doors down from my sister-in-law. Then all the things went haywire that I'm sure Henderson's familiar with. Go to find out, I have Snapchats from various people in group. They all pointed at her. There's a group chat. There was a correspondence with a bunch of people. My son was in it. He took screenshots. So the situation why Dr. Jara got in trouble with the solar panel place in Henderson, go to find out that I spoke to the HR and it wasn't a man that made that phone call. It was a woman. I played a video for him and to match a voice, sure enough, exact same person. So go to find out all the gang stalking from October, everything we've been kind of dealing with was Kate, District B's trustee. And I have to apologize because I thought it was Dr. Jara behind it because I didn't think that the lack of brainiacs would have that much juice. I don't know who was smart enough to give her that. But go to find out from a lot of people while I was in jail, she's the OJJDP, just AKA the prisons, the juvenile, the child services, prisons. If you don't do what she says, she'll put you in jail. I'm case in point. I have screenshots of our conversations and where she tried to get me multiple times to come over to her house, which I know better. She was trying to set me up, and obviously when she tried to hit me for the stalking, If she's the one relocating herself from Northtown to Henderson to the center of town, following my addresses, I don't think I was the one stalking. I think it kind of was the other way around. And Crystal Schneider and Cynthia Schneider, which are in Henderson, they're willing to testify against her and based on everything that's been going on. I spoke to Metro, but because of your guys' legislature you have, they need your guys' clearance to go after her. Because you remember, that's tampering with a federal witness 4 times, impeding in a federal proceeding 1 time, endangering disabled people 2 times. Crystal was my caretaker. So when she was tampering with Crystal and
Mr. Bayless, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you, Mr. Bayless. Tiffany, Dr. Beamel?
Good evening, Tiffany Bimmel for the record. It's been a great kickoff to the 2024-25 school year. We got our first week of school stats at our staff meeting yesterday, and they were so positive and uplifting. It really made my heart so happy. I've been coming to these meetings for 2 years, and one common thread I like to talk about are the pockets of greatness. We have so many pockets of greatness, so many amazing things happening in our schools. I just wanted to shout out our CCSD Traffic Patrol, the funniest Facebook group on the planet. Also, the registrars who got hundreds of late students registered on those first days of school. Our line went out our theater and wrapped around. There's like 400 kids. It was crazy. The student council members who made those kids feel welcomed and instantly part of the climate and culture. It's been such a warming and wonderful week and an awesome experience. But it wouldn't be my public comment if I didn't talk about portables. Oh, the portables. At our site, they're missing ceiling tiles. They have weird bell schedules, funky phones, weird smells. I know they're a necessary evil on almost every CCSD campus. It's how Clark originally got their portables back in 2013 was our modernization. There are schools with areas actually referred to as Portable City, and the portables are fenced in for security reasons. One thing to ponder, we built all these elementary schools to handle our growth back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And even with warning from several of our CCSD leaders, we didn't keep up with our secondary school growth. And now we're seeing the ramifications of that. Portables aren't ever probably going to go away, but isn't there a way to make them better? As the kids say, hashtag find a better solution. Thanks.
Is Jennifer present? How about Norm Schilling? Followed by Laura McSwain. Yes, please. Laura McSwain, please state your name for the record.
Laura McSwain for the record. I'm with the Water Fairness Coalition. We were formed about a year ago, actually this month. The organization was formed to achieve and advocate for water fairness, and then to do public outreach and educate the community to that end. I'm a native of Las Vegas. I grew up in the Clark County School District. My husband and I both graduated from Western. Both my children graduated from Durango. So I'm very, very familiar with the Clark County School District. I have nothing but great memories of participating. I was an athlete in school. So I come here with an open heart, with only the best interest in mind for the Clark County School District. What brings me before you today, Madam President, was the newspaper yesterday, the classified section, showing that there's 7 schools that are, their bids are being asked for in order to convert natural sod on the athletic fields to synthetic turf. Also, you were interviewed yesterday on KNPR. And you had indicated that the thrust of the effort was for the maintenance involved with these athletic fields. When directed to a question about the turf being healthful and are there any problems with artificial turf, I think the moderator asked you about that and at whether or not you would reconsider that or look at that if more information was brought to you. And to your credit, you said yes. So I'm here. And just to start off, like right out of the gate, I've got a bunch of information for the record to give to you tonight. But Los Angeles Times, August 5th this month, what's more environmentally irresponsible than a thirsty lawn? A fake plastic one. This has lots of information in it. It is an opinion piece. I'm going to be leaving that with you. I think what's become apparent, and this is from my own activism and participating in the community, the lack of awareness of the dangers to these materials. They're prolific. Taxpayers and ratepayers are actually subsidizing these materials coming into our community. And the unfortunate Spring Valley High School coach probably learned, and I doubt that he really even understood what he was dealing with, that what happens when 165-degree material comes into contact with skin. I'm sure that he is devastated at what occurred with his student athletes. So, but with the availability of information that's out there, and a lot of communities.
Okay, thank you. Forgive me, Laura, that is your time. You're welcome to submit any comments in writing. 3 minutes. Oh. Thank you. Please leave us the material with Caitlin to your left, and we will make sure to review that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Norm, I believe you're next.
For the record, Norm Schilling. I'm a graduate of Valley High School in 1979. My kids went through Clark County School District. I currently have 5 grandchildren in the school district. One's graduating, 2 have just entered. I'm here to talk on the same issue as Laura. I feel this is a very important 3 minutes to me. I want to ask you, please reconsider any artificial turf use in your schools. It is, I think, an existential crisis that we're currently facing here in Southern Nevada with the heat island effect that we're currently experiencing. We set 24 records in May and June of this year. I'm not sure how many in July. I'm a horticulturalist and arborist. I do a radio show on KNPR. I'm very active in the horticulture community. And part of my mission is to educate. The artificial turf has, there's a lot of things that I can talk about which I think are wrong with some of our current policies and how we're trying to handle the transition of our community from the more water-thirsty lawns and mulberries everywhere to the community that we want to be. But I want to just address the artificial turf in particular. I bought a thermometer recently to really find out what's going on. I measured the concrete at 155 degrees. I went to the asphalt, it was 165 degrees. I went to the artificial turf, it was 173 degrees. And that's consistent. It is not a viable surface for anybody to use. There's also the proliferation of plastic in our lives through microplastics. Plastic breaks down in Southern Nevada. It breaks down anywhere, but especially here in the dry heat, we currently consume huge amounts of microplastic in the air we breathe, in the food we eat, in the water we drink. And I can think of no greater way to introduce more plastic into our environment than through artificial turf. When that stuff is cleaned, when it is used, and when it is used by children, they will be consuming these. I ask that these be distributed to the board members, please. This is a list of chemicals found in artificial turf, which include known carcinogens, suspected carcinogens, neurotoxicants, endocrine disruptors, reproductive disruptors, PFOAs, polyfluoral, whatever they are, I don't know. There is so much bad, toxic stuff in there. And I beg of all of you, please consider what you're doing to our children and our community, because this is really bad stuff. I thank you very much for your time and consideration, and I pray that you take action against introducing artificial turf into our...
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I have Mrs. Stephanie Anica. Miss Stephanie Anica, please come on up, followed by Jeremiah. Is Jeremiah present? Thank you, Jeremiah. You'll be next, followed by Grace Duhio.
Good evening, board and members of the trustees. My name is Stephanie Anica, for the record. I'd like to talk about a little bit about WIDA testing and the ELL programs that exist at many schools, all of our schools. Many of my closest friends went through those programs. I have noticed, as a recent parent, reintegrating my children into CCSD because I did not have them in that school district. I graduated from Spring Valley. My husband did not have the privilege of graduating and later on went on to earn his GED. And we made the decision to put our children in private school. We were blessed with amazing opportunities growing up, and we're fortunate enough to do that. But now that we're putting our children back in, I've noticed that there's a vast lack of communication between parents, principals, and the school board. Particularly in this instance, for example, filling out registration for your student. If you are from a multicultural household, as we are, and we speak several languages, and we're very proud of that, and our children's ability to understand all of those languages, if you check a box, you are then routed to an ELL program. And that is a gross mismanagement of resources and funds that should go to the children that actually need it, students who actually need it, and not to those who don't. My daughter, who's here, actually was accepted to UNLV at 13 years old. She started her college course before she started high school. She's veered into that somehow, some way. So as a parent, I'm working with the principal and the administrators to get her on the right path because there are students that really need that program. My cousin, for one, who came from Costa Rica when I was in 9th grade, could have greatly benefited from that program, but was not put into that program. So it comes to a lack of communication with simply just asking the parents and their families, phone call, hey, what language is spoken at home? Is it primarily English? Does your student struggle with English? Can we help you and your family? And just by that simple phone call versus a form, a check the box, maybe I checked the right box, maybe I didn't because I didn't understand, is a simple fix. But I would encourage you all to explore that avenue. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Jeremiah, you're up next, followed by Grace Trujillo.
Hello. My name is Jeremiah, and today I want to discuss something that's on my mind. I want to talk about books that are available in schools, and some contain vulgar language or inappropriate content. Books are a great way to learn, explore different things, and understand people's experiences. However, some books in schools can have language or content that is too mature for kids my age. We should be cautious about books we choose to impact us. Reading books with vulgar content or inappropriate stuff can make us feel uncomfortable or upset. And we come to school to learn and grow. And the materials we use to support that should support that goal. Sorry. There are many excellent books out there that don't rely on vulgarness to tell a good story, like Charlotte's Web or Harry Potter. These are fantastic examples of stories that are engaging, inspiring, appropriate for kids my age. These books teach us valuable lessons, friendship, bravery, kindness, without using inappropriate language. I believe we can find educational and enjoyable books without crossing the line into vulgarity. We need to have a say in books we read because they shape our thoughts and attitude. By choosing books that are appropriate and respectful, we can create a better learning environment for everyone. I hope we can learn to select books that are suitable for kids my age and help us grow positively. Let's choose stories that inspire us, challenge us, and make us better without resorting to vulgarity, language, or inappropriate content. Thank you for listening.
Jeremiah, thank you for the record. Could you state your last name and what school you go to?
Trujillo, and I don't want to disclose.
Oh,
that,
you,
so-
okay, very good, got it, thank you, thank you. All right, Grace Trujillo.
Thank you for letting me speak today, board members. I am used to be a public health who worked in the county as a school nurse in San Bernardino and LA County. I just wanted to emphasize and give my opinion and urgent need to improve the education in our county. It's our responsibility to ensure that every child receives the best quality education possible. And I would recommend us, when people complain, I've learned that there's no solution, so I could just suggest solutions. I suggest curriculum reform. Our current education system is based on outdated models and requires significant overhaul. We should move away from memorization, standardized testing, a more holistic approach that includes problem solving, collaboration, digital literacy. Quality books. We should ensure that the books we use in a literacy program do not contain vulgarities or inappropriate content. They should be carefully chosen for age-appropriate content. We should replace this book with ones that improve reading skills, such as those that enhance speed reading skills, comprehension, and expand vocabulary. Improve math and science. We should incorporate alternative mathematical learning styles that will improve science and math. I believe in applied science and applied mathematics. Example of this, when I grew up, in my school that I grew up, we have, in 6th grade, we incorporated a co-op bank, and we actually made it on our own, and it's an applied mathematics. And also with science, when I was also at 3rd grade, in my time, we're already doing coding. That's 3rd grade. We don't have that. Parental engagement, as the person mentioned earlier, we should utilize surveys and put it into action instead of just collecting data. Participation of the parents is critical. Also, it should be within K to 12, this type of learning. Improving the standards of children's education, not just a goal, it should be a necessity. Working together, not blaming, we can create an education system that prepares our children for the future. And we can commit making these changes, ensuring that every child has the opportunity to be challenged. I think we underestimate the capability of our students here in Nevada. I think we should challenge them instead of just dominating them. And I have great hopes for the board that they can make changes. Thank you.
Grace, can you also state your name for the record, please?
Sorry, I apologize. It's Grace Trujillo.
Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, at this time, that concludes public comment. I'm going to move on to item 5.01. That's the upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees, which is on September 4th at 4 p.m. here in the boardroom. Seeking a motion to adjourn. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams. Trustee Satori.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Satori. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Bustamante Adams, a second by Trustee Satori. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 5-0. The time is 8:03 p.m. Have a great night.